afternoon's MADA Back to School workshop. It's a pleasure seeing all of you here. We still have a few people that are going to be joining virtually, and we have a decent group that's still coming into this area, but they'll be coming in over time. And this is all recorded, so you'll be able to see this, and our whole organization is going to watch this afterwards. So to kick it off, I'm going to welcome Miss Nisha Brooks, who's currently in Las Vegas. Wait, 1 second. I have to pull this up really quickly. Yeah. Oh, sorry. I'm so sorry, guys. My phone is having trouble connecting. Okay, there you go. It's all connected. Okay, so Nisha Brooks is an attorney and an assistant federal public defender, and she's going to be talking about her dream and her journey, which Mr. Jones already told us a little bit about. So I'll hand it over to you, Ms. Brooks.
Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you all for having me. It's my absolute pleasure to be here and in some way to kind of give back to the organization that I feel helped me in so many ways. So I'll start with why, and excuse the dog in the background, guys. I will try to keep her quiet, but she hears me talking and she wants attention. With that being said, I'll start with where I got this dream to become an attorney from. So when I was probably about 8 years old, I had an uncle who found himself in and out of the criminal justice system. So he was in and out of jail, and our family could not afford to hire an attorney to represent him. And so whenever he would get in trouble, he would be appointed a public defender to represent him. I distinctly remember one occasion where the public defender had reached out to my mother, wanted to speak with her about the case and specifically about my uncle. And so she decided to go to the public defender's office and she brought me along with her. And so when we went to the office, I remember looking at this attorney's table being filled with files. And I remember him not remembering exactly who my mother was or why he had asked her to come. He didn't really remember any details about my uncle or his case. And I remember just feeling really disappointed and thinking, well, if this man is supposed to represent my attorney or my uncle, shouldn't he at the very least know his story and have questions ready to ask my mom about how she can assist with either telling his story or finding out, if there's any possible defenses as to whether he was the person that went into this home or not, those sorts of things. And so after that experience, I said to myself, well, I want to be that man, but a whole lot better. Like, I want to be an attorney. I want to represent people who don't have, the resources or the money to maybe go out and hire a private attorney, but deserve equal and great representation as if they had hired the attorney. And so I said in my mind, I wanted to be a public defender. Then I took advantage of any opportunity I could after that experience to do anything related to law. So when I was in elementary school, there wasn't a whole lot I think I could do other than read a lot. I really enjoyed books, and any book that I could get my hand on, it didn't have to be law related, but any book that I could get my hand on, I wanted to read because I wanted to learn about the world. I wanted just to, increase my vocabulary and just read. I read for enjoyment. Once I got to high school is when I started to really talk to my teachers about wanting to be a lawyer and not really knowing, well, what should I be doing so that I could reach that goal? I didn't have anybody in my family that was a lawyer. I didn't know any lawyers. I had one family member, my aunt, who had actually went to college and graduated from college, but the rest of my family had only graduated from high school. So I depended on my aunt and I depended on my teachers to kind of guide me and tell me the things that I should be doing. So in law school, there was, it was like an introductory to law class. And so I took that class and got a little bit of an introduction to law. But I think the most important thing that came out of law school for me, not law school, high school, that came for me was there was a program called the Illinois Governmental Internship Program. I'm not even sure if they still have that program, but they had that program and it was available to seniors. And what it allowed you to do was you could apply to work in some form of government in the capital of Illinois, Springfield. And they would pick a certain amount of students. Those students would then spend a semester in Springfield, Illinois, in a certain profession. And so because I wanted to do law, I was selected for the internship, and I was able to spend a semester working for the district attorney's office. So it's not exactly where I wanted to be. I wanted to be a public defender, but at that age, I was willing to do anything legal related. And so I got an internship at the district attorney's office. I got an opportunity just to see the court system. I got to see how it worked from the prosecutorial side. I got to work one-on-one with the victim witness coordinator, so I could see it from the state's perspective when they're prosecuting these cases, how they consider the victim and the impact the crime had on the victim, how they prepared victims to testify when there was a trial. So it was a really good experience. And I think it solidified for me that I wanted to go into this line of work. And so after finishing that semester with the district attorney's office, my next step was taking the LSAT and then figuring out what colleges that I wanted to go to. And so in terms of college, you know, aside from wanting to be a lawyer, I'd also had a dream of always wanting to go to Howard University, which is in Washington, D.C., and is also a historically Black college. And so I applied to Howard, got into Howard, and again, looked for ways in which I could learn about the law while I was in college. I found at least two opportunities when I was in college, right? So one opportunity that I was able to get involved in early on was my second year of college. Well, I started working my first year of college, but my second year of college, there was an opportunity available at the Department of Justice. And I worked at DOJ. Again, DOJ is like prosecutorial side of things, but I worked with them in their Office of Consumer Litigation. And I started off as just being a receptionist. So I answered the phones, I transferred calls. And then as the time progressed, I was able to keep my job. So I went from working there during school to working there in the summer. I worked there all the way through law school. And at each point in time, they kind of increased my role. So I started as a receptionist. I then went to a clerk. I then went to be a paralegal assistant. And then I ended up being like a legal intern by the time I finished law school. The other opportunity I had to get involved in the law while I was in college was through mock trial. So I will tell you guys that nothing came easy for me. And I don't want to give off that, you know, all these opportunities was there and I just got in and I'm just this wonderful person and I'm super, super smart. No, that's not how my story works. I'm just trying to give it to you all so it, you know, and put it out there. But I want to make very clear that in every area of my life, I have had to work hard. Nothing has come easy for me. I am not naturally smart. Right. I have to work at being smart, or I have to work at understanding things and doing things. And I don't mind that. So with each opportunity that I found or had people in my corner who shared opportunities with me, I then took those opportunities. I put in the work in terms of preparing the applications. I put in the work in terms of talking to people and sharing with them my desire to do the thing that I was applying for. And so I say this at this point because that's what happened to me when I wanted to do mock trial. So I knew mock trial was essentially a group of students who would get a case and then they would prepare that case as if they were going to trial. And in order to be on this team, they looked for certain things. It was like a tryout. And so I saw the advertisement on campus for the mock trial team tryout. I said, this is really interesting. I want to be the type of attorney that's in the courtroom. So I need to start working on those skills now. I went to the tryout. After the tryout, it took about a week before they listed who made the team. And so when I went to see the list, my name was not on the list. I was devastated because I thought, okay, if I'm not good at mock trial, then how will I be good at being an attorney? And maybe this isn't for me. And all this time I've devoted to doing things to get me to this goal is not really working out. So I had a pity party, right? So I just cried, and didn't know exactly what I was going to do with myself. And after my pity party, I gathered my thoughts and I thought, okay, I didn't make the team this time, but I want to make the team. And I'm sure there'll be another tryout. So why not go talk to the coaches? So I went to the coaches. I explained to them that I really wanted to be on the team, that I had tried out for the team. I did not make the team, but I had this desire to be a part of it and was willing to do whatever I needed to do so that next time they had tryouts, I could be in a better place to make the team. And so the coaches, I think, were a bit surprised by me, coming and sharing with them that I wanted to be a part of this team, and was willing to do whatever I needed to do so that next time I tried out, I can make it. So what they offered me was, look, we don't mind you coming to the practices. You can kind of sit in the back of the classroom, you can listen and, learn from the students that are on the team, learn from the people that are new to the team, and, try out the next time we have tryouts. And so that's what I did. I went to every team meeting. I sat in the back of the classroom. I listened. Then it got to the point where I started raising my hand, asked some questions. And then it got to the point where the coaches saw me there all the time. Like I didn't miss a meeting. And so they would start selecting me, asking me to play different roles. They gave me the materials. And I would say by the end of that semester, I was a part of the team. So I didn't have to try out, but I showed them how devoted I was, how intent I was on being part of the team. And so they made me a member of the team. And so I was able to compete while being on mock trial. I think I did that either my first or second year of being there, but I was on mock trial until the end of my college career. So after college, I applied to law schools. I had applied to law schools in Chicago because I knew one of the top law schools was the University of Chicago. They had a really great clinical program that I had researched, so that was on my list. Howard was on my list because I'd already went to Howard undergrad. I enjoyed being in DC and felt DC had a lot to offer, so that was on my list. And then there was, I can't remember, a few other schools on my list. And so I applied to all of these schools. And again, I kind of hit a brick wall. I hit a brick wall in that in my mind, I had a top law school that I wanted to go to. And I did not get accepted, right? It was the University of Chicago. And this is one of many times where my heart was broken. And I thought, okay, I've reached the end. I gave it a good run. Figure out what else you want to do, Nisha. And the other thing that I thought I'd do with my life would be a teacher. And so I was like, okay, maybe you'd be better cut out as a teacher because this law school thing is taking a lot to get to where you want to be. Thankfully, I have a very, very strong, supportive mother. And my mother knew that this was my dream. She was very supportive and she's like, yeah, you're not giving up. So what, you didn't get into the school that you wanted to get into. You got into other schools and you need to sit down, think about those other schools and pick a school. And so before I did that, because that took a little still convincing from her that was the right thing to do. So what I did was I contacted the dean at the University of Chicago. And first I sent him an email expressing that I had applied to the school. I did not get into the school. I was disappointed. because I thought that there were a lot of things that I could offer, and I knew there were a lot of things that the school could offer. And what ideas did he have in terms of making my application stand out better? And so he actually responded to me. I wasn't expecting a response, but he did respond. And he shared with me at that point in time, they were really focused on having more students that had life experience. They were looking for students that didn't just, go straight to college and then go straight to law school from college. They wanted students who had had careers and could bring a little bit more, I guess, diverse ideas and opinions in that class that they were offering seats to. So his suggestion was, maybe you should take a couple years off. Maybe think about going into some other field that you're interested in, doing those things and then applying again. So I sat with that. I thought about that decision and whether it would be a good idea for me to take some time off, maybe look into being a paralegal or something else legal related. Or did I want to go to one of the other schools that I got accepted into and go straight into law school? And so I spent a little time thinking about that. And I ultimately came to the decision that for me, I needed to go. I didn't need time off because this was my desire. And I didn't want to take time off and get caught up in whatever money I was making in life I was leading and not go back to school. So I made the decision to go to Howard University School of Law in Washington, D.C. Again, I had already spent college there, so I knew about the town. I accepted a seat there, and it was the best decision for me. And I say it was the best decision for me because the school itself was relatively small compared to some of the other law schools. Just like undergrad, I felt the teachers were really devoted to the students and wanted us to succeed. And so I thought, well, if I got this attention in college, then I certainly will get this attention in law school, right? And law school, in my opinion, was going to be much harder than college. And so that's what I did. I spent 3 years at Howard, and I think that was the best decision I could have made for myself. Again, because of the attention and focus, because of the opportunities I got at Howard, I got to meet a lot of wonderful people. I got to take advantage of really great opportunities because my time on the mock trial team in Howard undergrad, the people at the law school was very familiar with our program. And so I was able to try out for the trial advocacy team in law school and make that team. I got to compete a lot. Our team was one of the first teams at the school that was involved in the ABA trial advocacy competition, and we won the whole thing. And so it was like some of those experiences that sort of said to me, you know what, you selected the correct route. Like it wasn't easy to get to those different places in my life, but once I got there, it was really fulfilling. While I was in law school, I participated in a criminal justice clinic. That clinic allowed me to meet clients and be assigned to misdemeanor cases where I got to represent these individuals in court. I got to hear their stories. I got to share their stories with the judge. I got to share their stories with the prosecutor when I was trying to negotiate. So those were experiences, again, that ultimately translated into what I'm doing now. And so I'll kind of fast forward. I graduated from law school. And before I graduated, I studied for the Illinois bar exam because I thought that's where I was going to be practicing law in Chicago. And so I sat for the bar exam. I studied really hard with the core group of students from law school that I knew really well. We bunkered down and focused for, I'd say, a month and a half. All we did was bar prep. We took the bars in our respective states. I passed the bar exam my first time around. Again, because I put in the work, right? I'm not saying I'm super duper smart or I'm a genius. I just put in the work and knew that the exam was really important. So uh, after I finished my prep for bar exam, my goal was to get a job working as a judicial law clerk. So I didn't want to go right into being a public defender. And I didn't want to do that because I knew from being in law school that writing is such a large part of being an attorney, right? Is normally oral advocacy skills and your writing skills. And I felt like in college and in law school, I had focused so much of my time on the oral advocacy piece that I now needed to turn to the writing piece. So judicial law clerks are ways in which you can, focus on those writing skills. And your mentor is a judge, right? The person who's writing a number of legal opinions. And so I applied for judicial law clerks in Illinois. I had also applied in Las Vegas because I had family here. So those are the two places I had family and I didn't mind living. So I was offered a clerkship in Las Vegas with a federal judge. And so that was my first job out of law school. I moved to Las Vegas. My clerkship was 2 years. I worked with a judge who had been appointed by President Clinton to serve as a trial judge. So he was at the trial level, which is the district court level. And I learned a lot from my judge. I got to read a lot. I got to see civil cases as well as criminal cases. I got to write opinions for him that he reviewed, gave me feedback, and then ultimately signed off on the decisions that I thought the law led to. I got to watch a lot of court hearings. I got to talk to my judge after those hearings to see what the attorneys did right, what the attorneys did wrong, to discuss like the legal issues presented and how he came to a decision. So my 2 years doing this clerkship was invaluable experience, and it opened so many doors for me afterwards, because I would say in criminal practice, if you're someone that wants to do criminal law, if you're able to get a federal clerkship, it really opens up a lot of doors. It opens up doors in terms of civil law firms being interested in you because, again, you've had this great experience with the judge. It opens your doors for public defenders and prosecutorial offices, again, because they all value this experience. And so for me, it opened this door that I hadn't even honestly thought about. I always thought I wanted to be a state public defender, meaning I would be the type of attorney that handled hundreds of cases. The cases would be murders, they would be rapes, they would be robberies, things of that nature. Well, because my federal clerkship had opened this other door, it opened the door to working at a federal public defender's office. Again, a door I hadn't even realized existed. During my clerkship, came into contact with an attorney that was at my office now. He point blankly asked me, "What are you going to do when you finish your clerkship?" And I said, "Well, my plan was to go back to Chicago, work for a state PD, and that's what I would do." And so he suggested, he's like, "Well, you should look into the Federal Public Defender's Office." He was actually the chief of one of the units there, and the unit was called the Capital Habeas Unit. And that's a unit that focused only on representing clients who've been charged with offenses that carry the death penalty. And these clients had already been sentenced to death. And so what his unit did was go back and look at the record from the trial and see what issues are there in terms of what wasn't done that should have been done, what rights were violated that the attorney who previously represented this client did not bring to the court's attention. So I was not familiar at all with capital work. I hadn't taken any classes in law school focused on capital work. But I decided to apply for the position because, again, I had spent 2 years in federal service as a clerk. I had spent almost 4 years in federal service at the Department of Justice during college and law school. So at this point in time, I had 6 years a federal service under my belt. And so it made sense to at least explore working at a federal public defender's office, because even at that time, I was sort of thinking about retirement, right? And I'm thinking, well, because I have all these years of service, wouldn't that help, right? Versus if I started at a state office, I have to start over in terms of building my years of service for retirement. And so that's the route I took. I applied to work in this capital habeas unit. I got the job. I spent 3 years in that unit. It was very difficult work. It was just very difficult knowing you had a client who at any moment could be executed. And it was a lot of work trying to make arguments that attorneys hadn't made before and really convince the court to take another look at the client's case. So I didn't get out of it because the work was hard. I got out of it because I always felt that my role was best in the courtroom, that I was a better advocate by making arguments before the judge and before jury. So I switched roles from the capital unit of my office to the trial unit. I've been in the trial unit since 2010. And so I've been doing trial work for the majority of my career. I love what I do. I represent people who are charged with robberies. They're charged with drug offenses. They're charged with child pornography crimes. They're charged with being felon in possession of a firearm. So I represent a number of people charged with all types of crimes, people who are looking at significant sentences. We're talking 10 years, 20 years, sometimes a minimum of 15 years in prison. So they're facing a lot of time in custody. And I'm representing people who look like me. The majority of my clients are people of color. They are normally people who've never been in the federal system. There are people who have been involved in the state system and have normally a significant criminal record. And so by the time I represent them, they think they know the system very well, but they normally don't know the federal system and know how difficult it is to get through the federal system. I enjoy what I do because, I represent the underdog. I get to do the best that I can in trying to present the best defense for my client and try to convince the jury not to convict my client. I get to have conversations with the prosecutors who are prosecuting their cases to help them see the human side of my client in hopes of getting better deals or better plea offers for them. And I get to represent my client, a lot of the times before the judge when it comes down to sentencing. And again, that gives me another avenue to be able to point out to the judge all the issues that my client has had to tackle in his or her life, and how his or her life most of the time wasn't easy, and how, some of their life circumstances led them before the court, and how the court should use resources other than incarceration to help the client. So I get to do all of those cool things, with things that I think are cool. I also more recently have transitioned into a management role in my office. So now I'm a part of making decisions to hire, new folks who are interested in becoming lawyers in our office. And I'm also a part of supervising these new lawyers or mentoring these new lawyers, trying to help them figure out, their style and the things that they should do in their cases. And so, if anything, I hope what you all take from this is it doesn't matter what you want to be in life. Doesn't matter what your beginning circumstances are. I didn't speak a whole lot about that, but I'm the product of a single mother. My father was not involved really in my life. I knew him, but he wasn't involved. My mom didn't go to college. She graduated from high school. She didn't have the best job in the world, but she was supportive. And her support, as well as organizations like this, is really what I think helped me build the confidence in myself that it didn't matter where I came from or what I had, but whatever dream I had was possible. Right. And it was possible because organizations like this bring people like me and others that you've heard from to share our stories with you so that you can see that whatever you want to be is possible. The only thing that you need to do is put in the work, right? Nothing is given to, well, I'd like to say anybody, but most folks, things are not given, right? You have to work at things, and there's always a way to get to where you want to be. You just have got to be committed to it. You've got to be willing to put in, I would say, more than 100% over that, right? And do things that you need to do, and maybe a little bit more to show people, how determined you are to break into a certain field or to do a certain thing. So that's my story. I hope it was helpful. I hope I didn't talk too much. That's the other thing about being a lawyer, is like you love to talk.
Thank you, Nisha. And it's so good seeing you again.
Good seeing you as well. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Great.
I forgot we were all muted, so you didn't hear our round of applause.
Oh. Thank you, guys.
Oh, thank you so much. Your story was so inspiring.
Well, I appreciate it. If there's ever anything I can do or anybody ever wants to chat, Johnny, please share my contact information. I certainly don't mind talking to anybody, okay?
Sounds good. Thanks, Nisha, and thanks for taking the time out to do this. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. You guys enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, Pranav, you ready to introduce our next speaker?
Okay, there you go. So our next speaker is Karen Potts, and she's the Senior Vice President of BECU, which I believe is the Boeing Employee Credit Union. And she's going to be talking to us about her My Best Me and what that journey entails. So I'll hand it over to you, Ms. Potts.
Thank you. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hey, so let's leave that mic on so you guys can talk to me. I feel like the room, your mic is on mute. So this is gonna be interactive. I'm not gonna be able to sit here and talk to you for the next hour. So if you can unmute that mic so I can hear you, and I see you guys are kind of sitting back. If the mic won't pick you up from there, can you bring your chairs closer? There we go. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Thank you. Thank you. So good morning. Good morning. So it's still morning here. I live in Seattle, so I'm about 2 hours behind you. So it's a little after 9. And I am so excited to be with you guys this morning. And first thing I want to do is just commend you guys for giving time on your Saturday for people to pour into you, and then for you to receive that. So kudos to the group that's there. And I think, is that the only group, Johnny, there? Or are there other people? I see some other names on the screen, but I'm thinking that my core group that I'm talking to are my group in the green. Oh, there's somebody. Hi.
Right. It's the little green people in the room.
All right.
And then there'll be some other ones online they'll pop in. So.
Okay, good. So I'll tell you guys, I am not a Zoom, as experienced in Zoom as I am in Teams, but I'm going to try to throw up a presentation here, and I'm going to hope that I can show the presentation and still be able to see my screen so I can see you. Let's see what happens here. There we go. All right, I don't know what's going on. Can you guys still see the screen? Can you guys see? Let's see. Can you see the presentation?
Yes.
Okay. Can you still see it? Yes.
Yes.
Great. I am batting 1,000 this morning. Let's see if I do that. What happens? Still see it?
Yep.
Great. All right. So let's start this off by an icebreaker. All right, so I want everybody to pick one question below and prepare to answer it. I'm gonna give you about two minutes, that's all, because we've got a lot to talk about and I'm excited about what we're gonna talk about. What is your dream job and why? If you could transform into any animal, what would it be and why? If you were a color, what color would you be and why? What superpower would you choose and why? You see, I want to know why, because we want to talk about, I feel like my picture of you guys is over here, so my head, you guys are seeing my side profile the whole time. I'm going to move this picture to that's not what I want to do. That's not what I want to do. That's what I want to do. Let me see if I can do this. There we go. So I can be looking right in the camera at you. I was looking off to the side. What song best describes you? So who wants to go first? All right, guys, we're gonna be here a long time if nobody wants to talk to me.
Hello, I'll go first. So my name is
What's your
Carl
name?
Bolivar, and for what is
Hi,
my
Carl.
dream job and why, it would be
Uh-huh.
like computer engineering or something like that. I am in like computers and how they work and how it communicates with itself. So I would consider that my dream job. And if I
Okay.
could transform into any animal, what would it be and why? I would transform into a penguin because they would like slide over ice and stuff. It's kind of funny, and I like penguins. And that's only one question?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you. Who's next? Tell me your name first.
Okay, I think you can hear me.
I can.
So,
I can.
perfect. So my name is Pranav Nyapane, and I'll answer if you could transform into any animal, what would it be and why? So if I could transform into any animal, and this was on the spot, I'm still thinking about it, but I think I would go with a pigeon because it looks so fun to fly everywhere, especially in New York City. I'm not a big fan of walking in New York City, but to be able to fly above the whole city, that would be awesome. And you get to eat New York food like all day, so I love it.
Cool. Thank you. All right, who's next? Move over just a little bit, maybe to where they were. The microphone seems to be that side. There you go. Let me hear. Give me your outside voice.
If I could choose, my name is Sen, and if I could choose a superpower, I would choose invisibility because then when I want to avoid people, I can avoid people.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Or you can slip in and out. Nobody would know you were there, right? All right. Anybody else in the room want to share? Here we go.
Hi, my name is Esther. Oh, hi, my name is Esther.
Hi, Esther.
This is a superpower. If I could have a superpower, I would also have invisibility, because like I would listen to people and what they say and their plan, and I can also avoid people. So
Great. Thank you for sharing. Is there anybody else left? There we go.
Hi, my name is Eni, and if I could choose a superpower, it'd probably be like super speed, because then I'd be able to get things done like really fast. So that would be pretty convenient.
Speed. Got it. Thank you. Oh, it's a lot of people in that room. Okay.
If I had a superpower, I probably want to breathe underwater because then I can never drown. And then I'll just do all of them, all five.
No.
Okay, yeah.
You can pick any question now. You don't have to do the superpower one. I noticed a lot of you guys. Now, if that's the one we want to talk about, that's fine. But
If I could transform into any animal, it'd probably be like a cheetah. So I just want to like run around Africa, so like that, and just be free.
cool. All right. Cheetahs are pretty quick and intuitive also.
my name is Timotayo, and if I could choose a superpower, I would choose invisibility because invisibility because then I can and I'm in an awkward situation, I can just turn invincible anytime. Or
Okay.
if I somewhere, just snap and then I'm gone.
Thank you. Is that everyone in the room?
No, we have more people.
Great. Thank you guys for sharing.
We have Caitlin too.
All right, Caitlin, come on.
Sorry, I can't get my camera to turn on, but my
That's
name is Caitlin.
okay.
The question I would choose is my dream job, and I think for me that would be like design marketing. I'm really into making pretty bold graphic designs. It's something that excites me, and I'd love to work in that field someday.
Great. Thank you for sharing. Now, did everyone participate? Yes.
Can the adults participate as well?
Definitely. Definitely.
Okay. So I didn't want to feel left out.
No, come on.
So my name is Abby, one of the parent volunteers. And if I would choose, what song best describes you and why? And several songs, but I will go way back, and this is way back before the young people were born. And this would be, there's this song by Destiny's Child, so that's how long ago. And probably Destiny's Child didn't sing this song, but it's called Independent Women. And actually way back before then, Charlie's Angels used to have this song, and it all goes about being an independent woman, which the why is that's who I am. And it also talks about empowering women, which is where my passion lies, is in women's empowerment. So that would be what would describe me.
Great. I think that's good. So I remember those songs. And so the young adults that we have in the room would probably say those are oldies but goodies. And we would say they were right on time. So thank you for sharing. So anybody else want to share on that's on the phone? Right. And so for me, I would say, what is my dream job? And I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about that because I think I'm in my dream job right now. And it's been a series of job opportunities or things that I've gone through over the years that have gotten me there. And what I want to talk to you guys about is how to know what your job is or what your passion is, or to make sure that you're led by your passion so that you can get to your dream job. So thank you guys again. And thank you, Johnny, for inviting me to do this. And so let me tell you a little bit about me. So we're going to start on the left side of the screen. You'll see a black and gold G there. And so for some of you guys, it's going to resemble some other professional football team that uses this same G, but that's not what that G means to me. That G is from, and I believe we have students that are from Oklahoma. I think, are you guys in Oklahoma, Arkansas? Where are you? Chicago, maybe? Tell me where are you guys? Where is that group?
Arkansas.
Arkansas. What part of Arkansas? All right. I told you guys we're going to be talking, so you can leave the mic open.
Northwest Arkansas.
Okay, so I used to live up there.
We have two connectors, so we have to unmute and mute. So
Okay.
just give us like 2 seconds between questions.
No problem. I just wanted to talk, right? I'd love to interact. So you guys are in Northwest Arkansas, so you're in Bentonville, Rogers, Springdale. So I'm imagining that you guys go to all those different schools, correct? Right. Okay. So we'll talk about my time up in that neck of the woods also. So I graduated from a small historical Black college in northern Louisiana called Grambling State University. Grambling is on what we call the I-20 corridor across the state of Louisiana. Not far from Northwest Arkansas. Actually, when I lived there, it was exactly 6 hours and 10 minutes from my door on Cadbury Avenue in Bentonville, Arkansas, to my mom's door in Grambling, Louisiana. So I was not only went to the university, my parents were professors on the university's campus. So I grew up in Grambling. I was born in a small town about 50 miles from Grambling. Both my parents moved to Grambling as professors on the university's campus. My mom was a tenured professor in criminal justice. My father was dean of vice president of student and academic affairs, which meant that he handled all the recruiting and things like that for the university. He retired from that and subsequently became the mayor of the small town of Grambling, and he served in a lot of public offices there. So I believe that's where I get my commitment to service. I graduated with a computer science and mathematics degree. By happenstance, I ended up in this field. I started out in biology and wanting to be a doctor, and quite honestly, I share this all the time. I got a little lazy. And so I said, that's a lot of school I got to go to. So I wasn't, ready to sign up for all of that. Now, in hindsight, I did that, but also it was something that it wasn't necessarily I was as passionate about as I am about what I do now. So when I was at Grambling, I was approached about ROTC. My father had been in the military, my uncles, I had cousins in it, and they said, hey, Karen, come take this test. We need people in the sciences, to give scholarships to. I was blessed to say that my parents were able to send me to the university, but my father said, hey, if you want to live in the dorms, you're going to have to kind of pay your own way. You've got a bedroom here in my house that's paid, that I put lights and food on the table. I don't think I'm going to pay for you to stay in the dorm. But I wanted to stay in the dorm, so I used my academic scholarships and things like that to stay in the dorm. The Air Force was basically saying, if you do well on this test, an academic scholarship where they would pay my tuition and room and board and give me a stipend for a month. I did well on the test. I ended up getting a scholarship. Well, it was in the fine print, though, with those four years that I needed to give to the military after I got out. So after I graduated, I went into the military, which turned out to be a great opportunity for me. So my journey didn't necessarily align to my expectations coming out of high school, because you have to be flexible with it. You have to listen to opportunity and be willing to do that. I became a computer systems analyst. I spent about 7 years on active duty. When I got off active duty, I got in the reserve, spent another 20 years, and I retired as a lieutenant colonel. So that's my Air Force career in a nutshell. I absolutely enjoyed it and loved what I did. While I was in the military, though, I also went to National University and got my master's in computer science with a concentration in software design. That was one of the benefits from being in the military. They paid for my next step of education. So I was able to get my master's while serving in the military, and at the same time didn't have any debt coming out of it. So when I decided to get off of active duty in the military at that 7-year mark, I stayed in the reserves, and that is a fruitful career for me also. But some of the places I've worked in computer engineering are here across the bottom, and those two right in the middle, J.B. Hunt and Walmart. That's when I was in Northwest Arkansas, and I spent a great deal of my time with Walmart and with J.B. Hunt, where I grew as a individual. Also, I can't tell you, with the footprint of both of these organizations, all of these organizations, how I grew individually. I want to tell you, though, that as I changed roles, it wasn't just for the money or the prestige. There was an opportunity there to build on what I call my core competencies, whether it was developing in a different language, whether it was leading different types of teams. So all of these moves were for a purpose, and to guide me to where I am today. So today I get the opportunity. Actually, I work with Johnny Jones. I actually worked with Johnny also at Walmart, and that's about relationship building, which is huge in everything that you do throughout your career. So at BECU, which is Bowen Employee Credit Union, I'll tell you a little bit about them, because part of my role as an officer of that company is that I always have to take the opportunity to tell people about that. So some of the lessons learned across my journey, I'm not going to read these to you, but these are things that kind of are my North Star that help me stay focused on what I want to do. And I say for everyone, you know, think about the things that help you stay focused, whether it's a quote by, you know, mine are by Muhammad Ali and Mother Teresa, but you know, there are some great figures out there that have said some great things that you could kind of focus on, from LeBron James to Steph Curry to all these different guys who have daily motivational things that they say that you might want to use as your North Star. You know, stay true to who you are. Don't let the pressure make you be somebody you are not. And we all run into that across the course of our careers. So a little bit about BECU. BECU is Boeing Employee Credit Union. And Boeing Employee Credit Union started out with the sole purpose of serving only Boeing employees. Now we're a cooperative that bring people together to improve the financial well-being of our members and their communities. These are the core values. All organizations or things that are places that you work and people that you work with should have a set of core values. Core values for BECU. Our members first, we do the right thing, we know our stuff, we own it, and we are real. So these are some of the things that guide us as an organization. And in life, you need your own set of core values that guide you in everything you do. So at Boeing, what am I responsible for? At Boeing, I'm responsible for a little north of 200 employees that are responsible for all of our engineering work and for all of our operational support. So if you think about, it's a credit union, but you know, if you haven't been in a credit union, if you've been into a bank, I like to tell people from the minute you walk into our credit union, any system or any interactions that you have, there's a team that more than likely reports to me in some fashion that's responsible for that member experience, whether it's from the way you sign in to the bank to let them know that you're there, whether it's from the way your deposits and your credits are done on your statements, whether it's how, you know, reporting is used to make sure that you get different information about the credit union. All of those systems and the people that run those are somewhere in the organization that I have the privilege of leading. So that's a little bit about me and what I do. So let's jump into, let's see, good timing. Let's kind of jump into the questions of the day that, let me see, that we were asked to talk to you about. All right, let's see. Is it gonna move? All right, let's see, it's not moving, it's stuck. There we go. So the discussion topics. Did you guys get these discussion topics beforehand? I'll give you guys a chance to unmute.
I don't believe so.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Okay, so there they are on the screen and everybody can see them. We're going to talk about these two discussion topics. And so we're going to spend probably about 15 minutes on each. And I do want, you know, us to be able to talk through these. I'm not going to, you know, lecture to you about them, but we're going to have an open discussion about it. And I know you guys have to turn it off and on in your room, so I'll give you guys time to do that. So, does college define my career journey? How do I identify opportunities that are good for me? So, does college define my career journey? Okay, someone in the room, tell me what do you think about that? What are your thoughts? A couple of people, when you unmute, maybe a couple of people, maybe can tell me what you think about that. I know I'm going to run somebody crazy muting and unmuting that, right?
Define but inspire your career journey.
Say that again.
Maybe not define but inspire your career journey.
Okay. And tell me, it maybe not define it, but it inspires it. And when you say it inspires it, that means that it helps it become better, or tell me a little bit about that.
So it helps you like have like a kind of like a group of like careers you can go into.
Mm-hmm.
But, like if you take one major in college, it isn't like your life is set on that path forever. There could be different circumstances in your life that leads you to different careers.
Great. That's great. Thank you. Who else wants to talk to a little bit about that?
I don't think it necessarily defines it, but it could definitely make it easier, because if you could see someone who probably goes to college in like the middle of Iowa compared to someone who may go to like a really prestigious college in California, like many both end up in the same job, but their paths are definitely be a lot easier for the person at the more prestigious college, and just because of connections and stuff like that.
Right. So connections are big. Yes, definitely. Anyone else? All right. So let's talk a little bit about that, right? Does college define my career journey? So a personal career journey is one that you create. It's based on a self-assessment of your skills, interests, hobbies, values, and passions. So your journey is how you build it based on what you want to do. So college doesn't, and I agree with the two people that came up, it doesn't necessarily define it. It can help better focus it, or it could help better build relationships that help you get to paths that you wouldn't get to before. So also, while college is a good option for many people, it's not for everyone. And not going to a 4-year college doesn't mean you can't have a meaningful career. So how many of you guys know people that didn't go to a 4-year college that have great careers, or that have done great things in their lives? All right. Yeah. So I guess the message there is that no, it's not the end of the world, but it's also things that you can do that are still meaningful based off of your passions, your hobbies, your skills, and your interests. So, but more people than ever have a college degree, but a 4-year program isn't the only way to be successful. If you aren't ready for college immediately, it's okay to take time to maybe work and determine what your passion and your goals are in life. So do you guys see maybe a theme here? It's about what you're passionate about and what your personal goals are, and then how you drive yourself to get there, right? If college is for you, you want to take classes that are around your passions, that you're interested in. And when you accomplish a degree, when you get your degree, you gain knowledge, skills, and experience to help you both in your career and in life in general. We talked a little bit about that, because in college, you're not only taking classes that align to what you believe that career path is now, but you're taking other things that complete a well-balanced life for yourself. Your first year, probably close to your first 2 years in college, you're taking a lot of what they call general studies type classes that are helping build that solid foundation about life in general. So you gain skills in communication, problem solving, achieving your goals, and you also increase your competence. There are a lot of classes in college where you have to do presentations, where you become comfortable about being in front of people. So if college is for you, you need to focus it and make sure that you're doing something that you're passionate about. I'm the mom of 3 girls, and I'll tell you that all 3 of them are different. And I'll tell you about our youngest daughter, who all 3 of our girls actually graduated from Bentonville High School, to say that. And then our younger one, when she went off to college, she went to Xavier University, which is in New Orleans, Louisiana. And she went there because it is one of the top schools for people of color that are looking to go into the sciences. They have a very strong program in that, and I don't know if any of you guys in the room are interested in that, but they have a very strong program in that, and they are either the number 1 or the number 2 a college that for students that get accepted into medical school. So she left Bentonville, and that's what she was there for. In her second year, she changed her major because her passion and her values and her interests were not there. She was probably living or doing something that she thought maybe her parents would be proud of, or something that she wanted to do, but she changed her major to psychology. She went on and she graduated from Xavier in psychology. She went on and she got her master's at Florida something in Boca Raton, Florida. She got a master's in psychology. She started to work in psychology for 2 years and decided this isn't for me. And now she's in law school at Howard. So what do I say about that? You define what your passions and your values and your interests are, and then make sure that you align your career goals in college or in trade school to align to that. So and it's okay. It's okay to I don't want to call it to change, but it's okay to reevaluate, to make sure that you're doing what you're passionate about, because your career, you do it for a long time. And if you're not passionate about it, it's going to become a chore to do it. You're not going to like it. You're going to be miserable. You're not going to enjoy what you're doing. So that's my advice for if college is for you. How many in the room think college is for them? Oh, great, great. But if college isn't for you right away, learn a trade. Learning a trade like practical nursing, carpentry, plumbing, welding, or any of those other in-demand skills is a quick way to start earning money without a degree. And they're in demand. Now, I'm not saying to you that that could be your long-term goal, but if you're trying to do something now while you refocus, get a trade, you know, so that you can be add value to yourself and to society by giving back to it. Military service, join the armed services after high school. Whether you go in for a few years or for 20 plus, you will grow up fast and gain transferable skills. It can serve to rejuvenate your sense of optimism and passion to achieve lifelong goals. Now, I am a military veteran, but I didn't go about it right out of high school, but I met a lot of people on my time in active duty that did come in right after high school, and then they subsequently went into Officer Training Corps. They applied for it, and they got into Officer Training Corps, and they became officers, which are two different career paths in the military, an officer and what we call our enlisted personnel. Two different career paths, two different ways of leading in the military. So what I'm saying to you from this slide is that it doesn't determine your career journey. College doesn't. But how you focus in on and understand your skills, your interests, your hobbies, your values, and your passion does define your career journey, right? Whether that's college, whether it's building a trade, whether it's the military service, whatever avenue that you pick, make sure that it's aligning to those things that I have there in bold. Because those are the things that are going to sustain you, and in the long run you will be happy and passionate about what you do. I've known many. Now, I've been extremely fortunate in that change in mindset, or that aha moment of what I was passionate about. I heard somebody introduce themselves and they said they really love computer science and what that brings. Now, I'm talking 30 years ago when I graduated with my degree in computer science. But that was a passion that I had in me, that it was like I wanted to know more about it. Every year, or, I'm a continuous learner. It's a field that continues to change. The computer and technology that we have today, you guys know, even in your lifetime, some things have changed. But I would say in 1990, or the late 80s, almost everything that we have today from the technology perspective wasn't there. I'll tell you, when I was at Chevron, you guys saw my my sheet of where I've worked. When I was at Chevron back in the early 90s, I was one of the first developers that wrote the code for card readers on a pump. How many of you remember not having a card reader on a gas pump? None, right? It's always been there in your lifetime, right? There are some of us on the phone that are like, no, that hasn't always been there. So, when you think about things that I've gone through in my career at Chevron, that was my my aha moment, that, I'm working with people now who have never been without a card reader. Or now there are some pumps with them not being on there, but it is a common practice to have a card reader on a pump. I was part of the team. Chevron was one of the first companies that rolled that out it was the early 90s that we did that. At AT&T, I was on the technology that we now use for our cell phones. AT&T was one of the first companies that rolled out cell phones, the big bricks, not the ones we carry today, right? And I was one of the developers on that. And part of my responsibility was logging into the towers. So you guys see all the towers around where your phone pings off of. Back in the day, we had to log into those and do what we call pull the call log down, so that we could build people. Now that's all like a second thought. We have APIs and things that run regularly that brings your building down. So that's, as I look throughout my career and where technology has changed, that has been passionate for me to see the change in the things that we're doing and how how we're doing things. You know, now through COVID, be it at BECU and AutoZone, it's about online banking and being able to do things online. What's your online presence, right? No one really wants to go into a store anymore, right? People want to be able to do things from the comfort of their home and be able to pay their bills and and do deposits and do checking and all that type of things, the things that you would normally walk into an AutoZone or Walmart or any of these last four, we want to be able to do it from the comfort of our home. So watching the way technology has transitioned across the years has been my passion. So what are you passionate about? What are your interests? What are the things that you want to be involved in? Your skills, your interests, your hobbies, your values, and your passions. That's how you need to think about your career and your career journey. So any questions or any feedback from anybody in the room on this? What are you guys feeling about this?
I have a quick comment. Uh, one of the young people mentioned the fact that you going to a school in the middle of Iowa may not necessarily give you the same opportunity as you going to school in California. And I wanted to disagree with that.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I think sometimes we fall into the, and I would say hype as a mother of adult children, that sometimes we fall into the hype that you have to go to this uppity school in order for you to succeed. There are schools that are in the middle of nowhere, but are great schools and have produced very well accomplished people. So I don't want us to go away with the thought that you have to go to an uppity school in order for you to succeed in life or in career, because you can go to the most uppity school and at the end of the day you may not do quite as well in
Mm-hmm.
your chosen field. So I think it's important that we put a balance there, that the important thing there is that you go to a school and you accomplish, you take everything you can from that school and you use it to accomplish something in society. And I think that's very, very important. It's not the school that you go to, it's not the be all end all. It's
Yeah.
what you do with the knowledge that you gain from that school that you take with you to other schools. And that's also why sometimes some young people go to community colleges for the first 2 years, because as you mentioned, the first 2 years they're doing general education for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
And most people don't declare their major in the first 2 years. So as to save on cost of college costs and things like that, they would go to the community college and get all those prerequisites out of the way and then transfer to a 4-year college and finish out its remaining 2 years. So I think it's important for us to level set and also to not to go away with the fact that you have to go to this particular school or that school in order to be successful, because as we found out during the pandemic, everything became a leveling ground. Whether you went to the most uppity school or you went to the least school, everybody was home and everybody was on Zoom or Teams, as the case may be, and receiving the same education. So that would be my
Great. I think that's great feedback. And I think what we need to take away from there is that, and I agree with you, it's what you get from the school, the relationships and the networking that you build to be able to get out and use that to be a part of your career journey. I wholeheartedly agree with that. Myself, I went to a small historical Black college, but the connections that I made there, the people that I met, the knowledge that I learned has able to build the stepping stones for where I am today. So I think exactly, I agree with you wholeheartedly. And when you're thinking about choosing a college, there are a lot of things that you need to think about. You need to think about, as it was just said, will a community college in my financial situation will that give me the leg up that I need to begin with? Then from there, transferring to a 4-year university to finish out your degree. Those are things, what's the environment like that I'm going into? Is it an environment to learn? Now, I found that the school that I went to, Grambling, a small historical Black college, was good for me because the classroom sizes were small. The teachers paid attention to me, and I was able to grow in that type of environment. Where for me personally, I have a daughter who went to Howard and who also went to Yale Law School. Now, she knows the difference between the two classroom sizes. Classes were bigger at Yale. She did not get the attention or the one-on-one type sessions that she got at Howard to really groom her, to really help her get through. But she was successful in both. But understanding how you learn is also a big component of choosing a school. Do we have a question there?
Yeah, I was gonna say something. Well, I feel like, okay, if we compare two schools, like maybe a small college, where you put in a lot of effort and you do a lot of good things. Like imagine putting that same effort, but for like a really good school. Wouldn't you profit more from it? Because like in a small school, you can get connections, but with that same effort in a big school with powerful connections, you can gain a lot more.
So what do you mean by powerful connections?
Like maybe like in Colombia, the connections there would probably be a lot more it would probably be a lot more big people, or like maybe politicians' children, or just like people who are very like high in the can I say standards, or like levels, whatever. But yeah, like you can definitely get more from people at Yale than I think you would get from people in a smaller college, because they might be from the same like comparing U of A to Columbia. I feel like there's definitely going to be more influential people in Columbia than there would be in U of A.
So don't underestimate the power of the people that are at some of the small universities and some of the more. I think you're talking about the ones that are maybe on the top 10 list or things like that. Because it's about, to me, and so I'm not gonna try to say that. If I went to some of these books that rank schools and stuff, that Columbia is not going to be ranked higher than U of A. But what I would say to you is that I would not let that deter me from being the best that I can be at University of Arkansas, because there are people there that have connections also, right? There are people there that you can link up with, that you can get the same type of introductions up to by being at those universities also. I see you popped on, Abby.
Yeah, I did pop on because I think you're addressing a very key point here. What I hear is a perception that if you don't go to a fancy school, you may not get connections, which is far from true. And also, who defines what a good, quote unquote, a good school is?
Yeah.
I think I try to be nice about what I say, but I think we actually do ourselves a disservice by ranking schools as good schools and not so good schools. I want to think that when I enter into a room and I present myself on the basis of my accomplishments and who I am as an individual, not because I went to a particular school and I have connections. I would see that as an educated Black woman, as an insult to my intelligence if all you're going to hire me for is because I have connections. And that's my perception.
And I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. And as you get out into the world, yes, so it might get you in the door, but it's not going to keep you there. So I would say to you that what you put into, and what your values, your passion, your interests, what those things are, and how you display those, and how you bring that with you into every situation. It's what's going to keep you there. So, yeah, great conversation. And come on, you're going to ask a question?
Oh, I was just gonna say, I saw Mr. Johnny said that we might need to wrap it up.
Oh,
No, Pranav, no. You jump back up and ask your question. What I was just saying is we just have to be cognizant that the speakers have, we have other speakers coming in too. So, but Pranav, come on, that's your question. Get back up there.
That's what I was about to say. I just wanted to come up and say that.
okay. I'm not reading the chat, so I just saw that because I get engulfed in the conversation because I think this is something that we need to continue to explore because I don't want people to not do something because they think that it's not the top or the best because we have some of the greatest leaders in that have come from humble beginnings or from these what you guys are characterizing as these small schools that have been successful in what they're doing. So we can definitely move on, but I think this is something as a core group, maybe we can continue the conversation. And Johnny, I'm open to do that, and come back to talk to the group about that in my experience, because, if you look at my resume, you would probably say I should not have been successful. But I think that, if in my own little humbleness, I have been successful in what I've done in this career path of mine that was chosen, that started at a very, very small school, that I wouldn't even, if you wanted to look, if you wanted to play, what's the name of that company? Is it US News that does those rankings or whatever? I don't even think my school it probably was even ranked, but I got what I needed from it to be successful and to build upon to get to where I am today. And I know many, many people from those same humble beginnings that are doing great things now. So great conversation. I love the conversation because I think that for those of us who have been through this, our probably goal for being here is to, if we just give you one or two nuggets that you can take as you begin your next cycle of your life in determining where you go to school, what you do next, then it would have been purposeful, these couple of hours that I spent with you on this Saturday morning. So, question 2, let me see if I can hit the right button, guys, which I can't. Okay, let's see. Come over here, Karen. There we go. How do I identify opportunities that are good for me? All right, this is when you guys, let's talk a little bit about that. How do you identify opportunities that are good for you? What does that look like?
Well, what I think for this is that just to seize any opportunity that you find, just to go out and do whatever you can, and you're going to end up finding something coming your way if you just get out there on your own.
Okay, so that says get out your comfort box, right? Get out your comfort zone, get out and look. Who's next? I see some people, I love it.
I would say that identify opportunities that don't deter you from your previous opportunities that you took. Make sure that you keep those, but also have an additional one if you're able to.
Okay, so if I could sum that, it's like, so let's say focus on your ultimate goal and make sure those opportunities align to that. Is that what you're saying? Don't be distracted.
Yes.
Okay.
I would say, like, I would agree with Pranav that, like, you just seize all the opportunities that you get, because I mean, you don't really know if the opportunity is good for you if you've never had a bad one. So you should like challenge yourself to take risks and
that's good. Yeah, take risk. All right, so let's talk a little bit. So let me start out by say, follow your passion, understanding who you are. So that's been the key to, right, defining your career journey and also identifying opportunities that are good for you. So what do you like to do? What are you passionate about? Think about what you enjoy most about your current job, or write a list of things you do outside of work that make you happy. Look for opportunities at understanding your own capabilities. What's your character, your feelings, or what motivates you? Right? So if you like biology, maybe you want to investigate medical, nursing, or an educator teaching others. There are a lot of things that you can do once you understand. And I keep talking about that because, for me, it was like in my sophomore, junior year of college that I understood what I was kind of passionate about, what I liked. But it evolved across the years, whether I was going to stay, non managerial or just staying, hands on, what we call in the tech word, hands on keyboard for my career, because there were different avenues that I could have taken there. But when I was looking at those opportunities, I had to understand what makes me, what's in it, and all of us are unique. Every one of you guys in that room, different opportunities fall on you differently.
And Karen, you've got Caitlin had a quick question for you.
Okay, Caitlin, go for it. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. It wasn't a question. I was just going to comment on the question, the overall question. That I'm going to say it's probably good to try to play to your strengths when looking out for opportunities.
Yes.
But seeking out new opportunities that maybe play on those strengths, but add another level of learning or something new to what you're looking for can always be good to show you maybe a new path that you can add on to what you want to do in life.
That's great. That's great, Caitlin. Thank you for adding that. So, to add to that, you want to believe in yourself and what you offer, what you bring to the table. Develop your self-confidence. Believe in the power of the skills that you offer. You want to invest in yourself. Now, one of the things when I introduced myself to you guys, I said that I'm a continuous learner. I know Johnny is, and probably most of us on the phone are. You think, once you get out of college, once you get your degrees or whatever, you're going to, or once you get your trade, you're going to stop learning. Or you don't have, but that's not true. That's not how life goes. That's not how you continue to grow in your career. You keep learning, right? Specifically, for me in tech, I have to continue to learn. I'm always reading a blog or trying to understand. It doesn't have to be this formal class, right? It could just be a blog that you listen to, or a blog that you read, or something that you keep investing in yourself, right? Johnny does that very well. He does it better than anybody I know. And so he's always investing in himself so that he can give back. And so that's what we all have to do. Get experience. Your passion can take you a long way. All you need to do is find the right person to give you a go. So looking for people, looking for that opportunity to really express and to be, and so that you can show what you're passionate about. Transferable skills are important, right? What are those skills that are transferable? Anybody in the room tell me a little bit about what you think transferable skills are? Nobody? Come on. Is somebody talking? I can't hear you. Can you come a little bit closer?
I think it's skills that you can use for different things. You can transfer it from a different type of thing to something else, and you can use it for different things.
Do you have any idea? Just give me one. What's one transferable skill?
I would say communication.
Okay.
You need communication for almost everything you do, and it's not just for one thing, and you can just use it for everything you do.
That's great. Anybody else? What about this last bullet I have, stepping out of your comfort zone? What are some of the things that you guys find that make you not want to step out of your comfort zone? Fear?
I think fear.
Yeah. Fear of what though? Fear of failure?
Yeah, fear of failure and not being able to get what you want. Failure.
Okay, yeah. So when you're in your comfort zone, you know, or you can imagine everything that's going to come at you. You know what questions are going to come. You know how to do it. You know how to respond to it. But when you're stepping outside of your comfort zone, when you're doing something different, like for me, this is outside of my comfort zone, right? Even though I might, you guys might feel like I'm in my comfort zone, we're having great conversation, but I think about, okay, so what are they going to ask me? Okay, do I know the answer? It's okay not to know the answer. Let's have a conversation about it. And so over the years, I've learned how to step outside of my comfort zone, and be able to learn from those around me and not feel like I need to know everything, right? It's okay not to have all the answers. Engaging in people in situations that will help you learn more So that's become part of how I invest in myself by learning, by, stepping outside of my comfort zone, maybe having conversations with things I don't know about so that I can learn. Like I might have a conversation with Johnny about data engineering. I know that he knows that, right? And I know that I've been very open to say, I need to learn more about that. I sometimes, we work together, so I'll chat him up and say, hey, what is this? Why do I need to know this? How does this work? Because I know he knows it and I don't, but I'm outside of my comfort zone. But I'm learning at the same time. That's how you have to approach opportunities. Some of them might be outside of your comfort zone. And so what are you going to learn from it? Is it going to build to your core competencies in the way that you'll be able to interact going forward? So that's what I have for you guys about how to identify opportunities that are good for you. Any other feedback from anybody else on the phone about it? All right, that's all I have for the group. Anybody have any questions for me that I didn't cover? I mean, I've got a few more minutes, I think, so I can answer any questions about what I do, some of the things, some of my journey. So I'm here with you guys for a few more minutes. So please feel free to ask any questions.
And we can actually go back to that conversation that we had before on smaller schools, bigger schools, and opportunities, because you never know where those opportunities lie. Because if you try to pre-plan based off what you expect based on other people's lives, that might not lead you to your destiny. So it's good for us to have that discussion on what's best for you. And what was our first speaker talking about? Our very first speaker talked about she went to Howard University. She had a dream, and that's where she ended up. And she's in a federal court. So go ahead. Who's that? We have somebody standing up there. That looks like Timmy Taya.
Yeah, it is. Oh, I was gonna ask about with coming out of your comfort zone. Like, how do you approach it? Because it's not just fear of like failure. I think it's also fear about how other people will look at you if you fail. Yeah, like especially like parents, like if you go to college for this thing and then you end up completely doing something different that they don't approve of, like how do you go about that? How do you like, yeah.
So that's a great question, and I'll let Johnny, everyone, let's kind of all talk about it, because I think your question is right on point. And as a parent, I've experienced that but what I have to step back and what my daughter taught me, because we learned from you guys too. She taught me that life is about what you are passionate about what you want to do with that life. So I'll tell you guys a story. My middle daughter, same story, Bentonville High School, Xavier University. She applied to medical schools, got in medical school, and she decided that she didn't want to be a traditional medical doctor. She wants to be a naturopathic doctor. Now, how many of you guys in the room know what a naturopathic doctor is? Right, that's how I was. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this kid is ruining her life, But I sat down with her and I could see and feel the passion about what she wanted to do with her life. Now, naturopathic doctor is a doctor that really focuses on the complete body. And what they focus on is natural healing. You healing your body, you taking care of yourself multiple years. They're not going to give you, they can do prescriptions. They do work under MD, they're NDs. And they do work in medical practices, but they're more focused on healing your body naturally. And so as a parent, I had a hard time with that at the beginning. But when she was able to communicate with me and step out of her comfort zone to sit down and say, hey, Mom, we need to talk about this because this is what I'm passionate about. Let me tell you what it is first. And then she was able to explain to me how she felt disproportionately people of color are over medicated. And so that was her passion about getting into this. She's going to be a midwife and a doula. And so she's really into natural type of healing, doing everything naturally. And it stems from her society views of the way Black and brown people are medicated. right? And so she wanted to be able to get in front of that and start to work with it. But I say all that to say, stepping out of your comfort zone is being able to understand what you are wanting to gain out of it and what you're also wanting to give from it. So anybody else want to take that one on too?
Just wanted to add that for me to get out of my comfort zone, I just like blank out, don't think about it, then regret it later. But then when you have a new opportunity, you just forget about the regret and just go in anyways. At least
But do
that's
you
how I
find that after you do that, what you get out of it is so fulfilling? You've learned
Yes,
something?
either because a lot of the times it's a risk. Like if you're going to go out of your comfort zone, a lot of times it can fail, and a lot of times you're gonna like maybe expect failure, but you just have to like block out the failure option and just go for it. But if you don't succeed, then you have like a whole new like opportunity.
Yeah, yeah. So sometimes you have to think about the good, that what you're gonna get out of it, right? Also, what else, guys?
I have a quick comment, and from the standpoint of a parent, and I can relate to your scenario about your daughter. So sometimes as parents, we want to live vicariously through our children. And the stuff that we didn't do, now all of a sudden we want to project that on our children. And as somebody who has adult kids, I've had to have those conversations as well. That ultimately it's something they're going to have to walk through, and something that that has to be able to pay their bills and and things like
Exactly. Yeah.
that. In line with that, what would you say now to your younger self if you were in your daughter's position? What would be one conversation you would have had with your younger self that may have changed the trajectory of your career?
Me personally, so I think I had that conversation with myself when I changed my major, and it just wasn't as, I guess, when you're in the different stages of your life. So when I did that change to my career, I can imagine my parents probably felt like I felt when she did that. And so it's almost like you live these different cycles of life of where you are. And so to my younger self, it's like, and what I'd say to this group, and I've talked about it, is that understand what you think your passion is, and that the circumstances that come out of that are ones that you're going to have to deal with. And as parents, sometimes we have to step back and let you deal with it. And so that's the hardest part of being a parent, but also as being a young adult, to really define what that is and be willing to deal with the consequences. And now look, we're talking about educational things. We're not talking about activity that's not going to grow us, right? We're talking about school. We're talking about decisions about what internship to take. We're talking about what opportunity to take that's going to guide me, and then if that's really going to guide me to where I want to go. Because I think that it's okay, and this is where we don't, I think we need to do more of, it's okay to, and I'm going to use this, Lucy, what I call fail fast, right? Say, oh, well, wow, I took that opportunity. Hey, I'm going to finish that out because I committed to it, but I know that's not what I want to do, right? And then I'm going to course correct and come back and do something that aligns better. I think those are some of the best learning experiences in life. I've done some of those too. Some of the companies that I went to, within the first couple of years, I was able to see, man, this is not going to work for me. And so how do I course correct? How do I look for a new opportunity? Now, my word is my bond. So I've given my word that I'm going to commit to this and get this done. But at the same time, I'm looking for that next opportunity because this one didn't pan out. And that's okay. Because when I talk about coming out of your comfort zone and stuff, to me it's all about, okay, what am I going to learn and grow from it? What am I going to do differently? Is it going to feed me? But sometimes you have to feed other people also. So by doing that, you're giving back. And I think that's something that we all have to make that a priority, to give back also. So.
And one thing that I really agree with Karen. I agree with quite a few things Karen says. She's my boss. Just kidding, guys. But one of the things that she brought up is the fail fast. And how many of you guys in the room have ever had this great idea, but you didn't want to try it because you were scared it was going to fail? but someone else did it and it was successful, and you went and said, I had that idea a long time ago. The difference in you and them is they stepped out the comfort zone while you got to watch them implement what you had thought about a long time ago. So I think you'll start to realize a lot of times you say, man, I thought of that a long time ago. Man, I could have done that. But when you don't take that chance because you're worried about failure, somebody else isn't worried about failure, and they're going to take that chance, and they're going to do what you should have been the one that did a long time ago.
Yeah. Great. Thanks, Johnny.
Well, do you have any other questions? And like we said, Miss Potts is out in Seattle, so they're on a 2-hour difference. So we're really grateful that she took the time to talk to us.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me. I absolutely thank you. I enjoyed my time with you and Johnny. You know how to reach me if you guys we want to have more conversations. I guess I'm just really excited to see this diverse group of students. And in Northwest Arkansas. I came to Northwest Arkansas in 2005, and just that group there of diversity and inclusiveness was not there. And I think I'm really excited to see this group and the possibilities of the things that you guys are going to do. So I look forward to hearing to it. And you guys, this is a great program. So thank you guys for having me. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Pranav, you want to come up and lead us onward?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Again, thank you so much, Ms. Potts. That was an amazing presentation. I loved your emphasis on passions and developing yourself through the stuff that you do, especially comfort zone. I know I'm really bad at that. And about the college discussion too. I really enjoyed that. So next, we're going over to our next speaker who is in the Zoom. Her name is Sheila Marionneaux, and she works for Envoy Air, and she's going to be speaking with us on communicating with clarity. So I'll hand it over to you.
Hello. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, now I have to figure out this technology so I can share my screen with everyone. Bear with me. This is part of visual communications. I'm trying to get it right. Are you guys getting anything?
It's like it's coming.
Okay.
Yeah.
You got it?
Yeah, we have it now.
Success. Yay. Hi. How's everybody doing?
Good.
It sounds like you guys were having a very rich session. And, I just want to say thanks to Johnny. Thank you for inviting me here to, impart some communication information and tips that I have learned along the way. It's been a long time since I've been in a forum like this, but Johnny called me not too long ago, actually, and asked me if I would participate in this workshop. So, of course, I'm not going to say no, because Make a Difference Youth Foundation is very near and dear to my heart. So I'm just going to say that I heard a lot of rich discussion. And I heard someone mention about communication being a transferable skill. And I was going, yes, who asked that question? It is definitely a transferable skill. And it's going to give you the advantage in a room to be a great communicator. It's only going to give you that extra edge and give you the advantage. So whoever asked that question, I was very excited to hear that. A little bit about myself. I from Chicago. I went to Hirsch High School. It's on the south side of Chicago. I graduated from Columbia College downtown, and I majored in PR, communications. I also have a minor in journalism. So my career path has been all about communication. And that transferable skill I have taken with me to every professional workplace, I've been in, which has been quite a bit, but I've been able to draw on those skills and leverage them in very, very, very many instances. So I am grateful to be a communications animal. I'm very excited to connect with you on this today. I have a passion for nonprofit work. Again, make a difference is near and dear to my heart. I love to see the students come in, get the knowledge, get the skills, and just apply them. So thank you again for having me here. And let's get right to it. Can you guys see the screen okay? Okay, great. So we're going to talk about communicating for clarity. And what I am about to do right now is actually a tactic. So while I am explaining to you what we're going to be talking about, I want you to know that when you have to give presentations, it's a good idea to tell your audience what you are going to be covering. It is a way of level setting so that everybody can expect to understand the scope of conversation. But at the same time, it keeps you focused, because you can imagine when you're talking about communication, there's a million things you can say, a lot of different subset conversations, so much to talk about, and we can't cover everything today. But when Johnny asked if I could participate in this session, I thought, okay, well, let me pull together some core areas that I think you'll be able to take these tips and information and apply them. You are bright students, you are articulate students. I've heard you already. I was listening for a while. I want you to think about how from this day on, you can take these tips and apply them. So I'm getting ahead of my own conversation. Let me stick to the script and say what we're going to talk about. Preparation, research that goes into your communication efforts. We're going to cover the 7 C's of effective communication. We're going to touch on interpersonal communication, both verbal and nonverbal. The verbal part is easy. The nonverbal part, you'd be surprised how much you can influence your own message with nonverbal communication. We're going to talk about written communication, of course, which is what Johnny has asked me to cover. We will talk about that. And I'm going to give you a tool to help you with your approach to written communication. And that tool is called the inverted pyramid. We cannot leave today without talking about social media. Big communication opportunity. And I have pulled together what I consider the things that will sidetrack you every time. I call them communication pitfalls. So as we talk today, I didn't mention in my introductory statements, my day-to-day job, I am a flight attendant. I have done a lot in corporate America, and at this stage of my life, I'm actually a flight attendant. So you can imagine the communication skills in my current role in today's world are very, very, very important, right? I'm saying that to say, I cannot emphasize the value if you just kind of hang in there with me, because this is not formal, this is not a formal presentation. This is like a brain dump out of my head. And I did a little bit of research to make sure that what I was telling you was current. So without further ado, let's get to the first topic. I want you to be aware of how you wish to communicate from this day forward. I want you to be mindful of the various ways you're communicating. And sometimes we don't think about the categories, but I would like to say that expression about how do you take on the elephant in the room, one bite at a time. I wanted to bring to your awareness the various forms of communication, even though we're going to be talking about written communication in a little detail. I would be remiss if I didn't give you the big picture where communication is concerned. There's verbal, written, nonverbal, there's mass communication. You could be in a situation where you are an intern and you have TV broadcast responsibilities, radio, that's all in the mass communication realm. There's the visual communication, YouTube, presentation, anything that has visual elements associated with it. Group communication, what you're doing right here today. This is a group. So there's, there's ways that you can communicate effectively in a group situation. Then there's feedback communication. You may be asked for your opinion on a matter. You might have to give a survey response that calls for a narrative component. So I want you to think about the various channels and ways you communicate, because this is how you will begin to prepare for your success in being effective. Is everybody following me so far? Okay. So there are the 7 C's of effective communication. This model, I believe it surfaced in the early 1990s, and it seemed to have stood the test of time. I think 2 writers worked on this model, and it's really a checklist of communication skills that you need to be effective. Now, I mentioned all of those areas of communication, not just written communication, but this is like a model when you approach, if you're going to write a memo, if you got to represent your school in a speech, if you're trying to do a cover letter, what have you. Go back to this model and think about, did I check all these things off of my list? Am I clear? You want to be clear about the goal and the purpose of your message. That has to set you up for success right away, clarity. You want to be concise. You want to keep it to the point, keep your message short and simple. You might have heard the expression, less is more. You want to be concrete, be clear, don't be fuzzy. You want to provide details, but not too much detail. Correctness. You want to make sure your message is accurate and grammatically correct. And this particular one that's my own pet peeve, because we're human. We're going to make mistakes. We're not going to be perfect. But if you can try and put effort into making sure you at least have the basic correctness about whatever you're doing, I like to call it attention to detail. If you're not paying attention to your own work, how do are you going to ask that of others when you have not paid attention to what you're giving? So you want to be as kind of respectful about it. If you want people to receive what you've written, then you want to make sure you put some effort into it, right? Coherent. You want to make sure your message flows well and is laid out logically. Completeness. You want to ensure that the recipient, the audience, has everything they need to understand what you're trying to say. You've heard that expression, you only have one time to make a first impression. And oh God, I do have horror stories I can share because again, I am human and I remember making glaring mistakes that I call myself a communicator, yet I have made certain mistakes and I didn't catch them. Okay, you move on. You figure okay, I blew that one. But 9 times out of 10, you're not going to blow it again. Courteous. Your message should be polite and friendly and professional and transparent. We are living in a time today that I have never seen the level of disrespect and vitriol and just unimaginable conversation that is right out there in the open, that is, in public. I've never seen that. you know. However, that does not mean we cannot make our own individual statements. You know, I'm not going to get political at all. I'm just going to say, stay on the high road. Stay on the high road, because that's your character on display. Communications is your character on display. Okay. The nonverbal and the verbal communication. So, are you sending a clear or confusing idea based on mixed signals? Are you credible based on your posture and your delivery? Do you practice out loud? Do you practice with a mirror? Now, this might be, you know, funny, humorous, what have you, but I'm not telling you anything that I have not done, because this is how you hone your craft, you perfect your speaking skills. You are your worst critic. And if you can look yourself in the mirror and be pleased with what you're delivering, chances are that when you speak in public, it will be well received. These nonverbal things, the way you talk, your posture, your appearance, eye movements, all of these things, you are communicating a message. You are communicating signals. If you look at the examples to the right, if you were in a business meeting or a group meeting and you saw people sitting around the table with these expressions, do they look like, you know, they're on board with what is being said? Do they look like, is it professional? Do you find these expressions to be professional? These are the kinds of things I just want you to think about, because again, we're human. Okay, we have our own opinions, but it is a display of your capability when you come to a meeting or a forum and you display nonverbal communication on this level. If you really want role models in terms of how to, let's say, pattern certain models, take a look at, I would say, some political footage. You don't see very much expression on the faces because nobody's trying to tip their hand. Nobody is trying to show you, you know, what their thoughts are. If they don't like what you're saying, if they agree with what you're saying. Sometimes if you look at a courtroom, the jurors will have very straight faces. That's all for a reason. It's all nonverbal communication. You know, you may go back to childhood and your mom may have asked you a question. You may have done something that you shouldn't have been doing. And you really would not have to open your mouth. If your mom asked you, did you take that? Did you do this? And you kind of give a look. So it's game over, right? You just basically said, yes, I did it. So that is actually nonverbal communication. So I just want to make this point to say, while you're focusing on all of the strategy, all of the thoughts you want to be in a cohesive manner, there will be a time where you have to get up and communicate your position or listen to others and be in a public, perhaps it's a panel discussion. You'll be on a student panel, what have you. You will be on display as well as your verbal and nonverbal communication. Are there any questions about that? It's pretty much, I think the images on this slide is pretty clear on that. So the guy, the last image, he looks scared to death. Okay. And people, I remember being in a meeting, and I will admit I have my mother's face. My mother had a lot of expression. So, okay, guilty. This one I've had to work on myself. All right. But I can remember sitting at a table and my boss was talking and telling, you know, she's going on. And then she stopped and she said, Sheila, there's something on your mind. What would you like to share? What's on your mind? And I'm thinking, I didn't say anything, but apparently my face was saying some things. So I've gotten better with that as well. But nonverbal communication, I don't want to leave this slide without saying it can also work to your advantage. You're in a lecture hall, your professor's giving the lecture, you're sitting close up to the front of the room, you're nodding that you understand what he's saying, you're taking notes or what have you. Believe it or not, speakers, presenters look for positive nonverbal communication signals to really validate what they're saying. Nobody wants to be standing at the podium and people have their head down, they're chewing gum, they're texting, they're just not paying attention whatsoever. So just keep that in mind. You can use nonverbal communication in the most strategic way to work in your favor as well. That goes along with your overall effectiveness. Okay, written communication. These are the points that I want you to think about. And this is the tool that I mentioned. It's called the inverted pyramid. And it is a tool that has a long time standard. Writers use it, journalists use it, presenters. It's a way of organizing your thoughts. It's a way of creating an outline and using this method. And this formula, it does help you to stay direct and to the point. It helps you to decide what is priority that you have to communicate versus, you only have so much time to communicate. What do you want to say? What's the most impactful, the most important, the priority messages that you want your readers to know, or your listeners, what have you, whatever the medium is. If it's a text message and you don't have long to text because you're in between class, what do you want people to know? You're gonna, as they say, cut to the chase, give them the who, what, when, where, why, and how. You give them additional supportive information that you think will be helpful for them to have. And you can also, throw in something else, anything else. But the things that go at the bottom of your pyramid are the need to know. They don't have to know, but it would be nice for them to know. If you use this model, it will help you in whatever form of communication you're setting out to accomplish to be most effective. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with this show, Showtime at the Apollo. I don't know if you're familiar with that. But it's like those performers get on stage and you got so much time to get over. I'm a good singer, I'm a good speaker, I'm a good dancer, I'm a good actor. If you can't accomplish it in a certain amount of time, you're going to get the hook. So with respect to this model, make sure you use this model so that you can get out all of the priority things in case people don't read all the way through. People skim things. They don't read everything, right? So make sure you tell them up front what you want them to know. Any questions? Okay, I guess we're good. I don't want to, when you say written communication, it could be a very vague concept. So I just really want to call out some of the most important types of written communication in terms of how we think about preparing reports, memos, bulletin, job descriptions, any kind of manuals, and particularly emails. There's informative emails. You want to inform in your email, or there's urgent matters you might need to communicate. You might need to send a persuasive email. You might need to share bad news, but at the same time, while you're sharing bad news, you want to kind of still leave the feeling, if it's possible, you want to communicate goodwill in that email. You just don't want it to be a bad email. It's like bad news, see you, bye. You want to also have some type of positive ending to your email. you might have to bridge some gaps in an email. You might have to clean up something that has happened and come back and kind of clean it up and put a positive face on a situation. All of these things fall within how you would set out to write your communication and set out to plan what you're going to say, when you're going to say it, the order in which you say it. So there's a lot that goes into it. It's just not about sitting down, I'm going to send an email. If you want to be forward thinking and proactive and intentional, you will put some research towards what you have to do so that you can use the right tools. You know, there's instant messages, website communication. Not so much anymore. People don't use letters and postcards and telegrams and faxes, but I mean, they do still exist in small circumstances, small, I guess, usages, you would say. You don't use them that much. Contracts, advertisements, any type of press release or news forum, all of these things that we've talked about, there's an approach to written communication. And today is not about me really, you know, teaching a lot of techniques. It's just things I'm imparting to you so you have the capabilities to do your research based on what you want to do. I just want to give you thoughts about the direction and how you communicate and the various forums. Social media. So with social media, the thing is, I just want you to consider that you're actually communicating your own brand through this channel. You know, how effective are you in communicating what you want people to know about you? It's so easy in social media to be casual or to, I guess, not put the thought into how you would like write a report or a memo, but yet it is a form of communication. And it's really, really tricky because this is how, when you're talking about, I want to go away to this college, I want this job, I'm going to pledge this fraternity, I'm going to pledge this sorority, I want to volunteer for this organization. People check you out on social media. They will follow you. They will use social media to size you up as a person. So what I would say about social media is just to be very careful and be strategic. It's not a bad thing to use social media to talk about your volunteer projects, to upload, you know, pictures and tell a story. I went to the food bank this weekend. It was so much fun. We got a lot accomplished. You can use social media to your advantage, just like that nonverbal conversation I was telling you about. You can be very strategic with social media. Just in terms of trends, of course, it's no secret to you guys probably that nearly half all teens in the United States right now use the internet almost constantly. So there's some apps that are more, you know, popular than others. But my point in talking about this is try to think about using social media to your advantage, to communicate to the world. You are communicating globally, okay? You're communicating to the whole world who you are, what you're about, what your temperament is like. I'm sure you've seen those videos about, I don't know, somebody's going into McDonald's and they didn't put their fries in the bag and they had a hard day, so they're going to take it out. And so when those things go viral, that person has just put themselves, they are on blast. Employers are going to say, well, if that's the kind of temperament you have, you may get good grades, but I don't know if you have the soft skills. You have the hard skills, which is technology or engineering or bioscience, whatever. You have those hard skills, but I need people with emotional intelligence skills. I need soft skills. And, you know, that goes back to what somebody said about communication being a transferable skill. Yes, yes, yes. You're already winning. You are winning when you take these concepts to heart and understand I can use this type of communication. If I'm at a network forum, I know my body language is going to be important. I'm going to bring what I have to the table. I'm going to get business cards. If I'm on social media, I'm going to talk about my position statements. All of these things you have to your advantage. Okay. Okay, the pitfalls. These few things that will almost always undermine what you're trying to do as a communicator. And believe me, I understand that these may seem very evident, these may seem very obvious, but things happen, our schedules get full, we spread ourselves too thin. I got to study, I pulled an all-nighter. I don't have time to proofread this letter for this college. You know, this is it, I'm sending it. These things will impact you. The lack of preparation, the effort, you know, again, I talk about that attention to detail that shows how meticulous you are about representing yourself. Failure to consider barriers. What could be the barriers? Who is my audience? That goes hand in hand with knowing your audience. Who am I talking to? What type of words do I not need to say because it could be offensive, because this is a global audience and they may not understand certain words that I'm using. They could take offense to certain expressions, you know, all of these things, careless mistakes, poor grammar and sentence structure. Let me pause on this one. I have to say, you know, mistakes are one thing, but the grammar, that is something you can work on. I don't know, you know, after so many years in communication, certain things are said and they just stick. And the dictionary then says, okay, this is a legitimate word. You know, it wasn't a word before, but okay, now it is because so many people are saying it. I would just tell you, this grammar, that tells off on you as a person. If I say, give you an example. People say, you're welcome. Okay, thanks so much. Okay, you're welcome. In writing, they say Y-O-U-R. You're welcome, you're welcome. Okay, when actually it is Y-O-U apostrophe R-E. You're welcome. You're welcome. It's a contraction for you are. You're welcome. Thanks. You're welcome. And you know, when you say your, it's like your purse, your shoes, your house, your car, you're welcome. That is one of the things today that more, it's just a tell. And so I bring that one out just to say, be careful how you use you're welcome. Your versus your. It just tells off on you. It's like, you know, it's like manners in a restaurant. You know, certain things are just evident. So these grammatical errors, they say a lot for you. I'm going to the store too. I want to go too. Well, let me see. There's T-O-O, there's T-O and T-W-O. And again, it may sound, I may be totally talking to the wrong audience, and forgive me if I am, but I was asked to give you pointers about writing. And so these are some pitfalls that trip up a lot of people. I'm going to the store too, T-O-O. Or you say, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to. That would be TO. I just want to make you mindful, because when we send text messages, we abbreviate so much today that when we have to do a formal written communication, you know, the mind is tricky. We've said it so much in a text message, we're going to spell it like that when we're writing it out. So please be mindful of these communication pitfalls. Try not to be vague and confusing or mysterious about your message. You know, what is it that you're trying to say? If you use that inverted pyramid model and check what you're saying with the 7 C's model, you have a better chance of really having put some strong forethought into making sure your message is delivered effectively and clearly. So again, I mentioned that already about you don't know your audience. It's really a missed opportunity when you don't know your audience. When you're walking and you speak into your messages off for the particular audience that you're talking to, it's kind of like a disaster. But I tell you that because you can get in front of it and you can prevent it. We are now a global society more than ever. Okay, we are finding ourselves with people from all over the world. And it is a matter of respect if you read up on certain cultures so that you know how you are received and not offensive. If you understand that in some cultures, eye contact is looked upon as, you know, almost aggression. And it's a sign of respect in some cultures that not a whole lot of eye contact is made. It just gives you the advantage when you're in a room and you already know that, versus being somewhere and you go off and your friend said, did you get that guy? He wasn't even looking. He acted like he didn't even want to talk to us. So these are the things culturally, you know, now you're up in your game. Now you're going into the space that is called cultural competence. That is adding to your skill set. In certain cultures, they don't want to shake the hand. If you're a woman, they don't want to shake your hand. You know, a simple nod of the head will do in a business setting. And we are so used to, especially pre-COVID, it was all about the firm handshake, right? So know your audience, know your environment, understand that in order to be, you could be the smartest person in the room. You could be a Rhodes Scholar. If you can't get your message across, that is what you want to achieve, being successful in getting your message across. I think I've said enough about that. Does anyone have any questions? I'm hoping this information is going to be helpful. I just want to recap on what we have talked about. Doing your research, preparing, putting some effort into what you want to give, what you want to present, what you want to say, making sure you've done your best to put the best package on your communications effort, whether it's a message, whether it's an email, whether it's a blog, doing the work up front to make sure you're putting forth your best and you're effective. You're doing yourself an injustice when your listener can't understand what you are trying to say. And it's within your power that's really the point I want to make. It is within your power to be effective. You just have to have, you know, a formula, an approach. You just have to dissect that elephant. Use the model when you need to use the 7 C's of effective communication. That is a recipe for success in whatever you're doing. Be aware when you have interpersonal communication of your verbal signals, your nonverbal signals. If someone asks you a question and you nod in your head, but you really mean one thing, you nod in your head. No, it's like, well, okay, so what is it? You know, how credible are you to your own case? Use your tools for written communication. let people read drafts before you send them. You've all heard, I'm sure, hopefully, that you do not send things when you are upset. You can write an email. You can just say, I'm going to put it all in an email. I'm going to put this all down. And when you get through writing and expressing yourself, look at what you've written. Look at what you've written when you're calm, because a lot of times we're too emotional and we have not considered so much. All we want to do is get across what we're trying to get across. Don't send things, do not send emails and messages when you're upset, because it just keeps it really keeps the negative flow, the confusion. You know, well, I didn't really mean to say that. I meant to say this. It just didn't come out right. Take your time, craft your communications, read your communications, and if necessary, share it with somebody else and say, how does this sound to you? I do it all the time. Because I am, being a communication person, very passionate. I'm very passionate about communicating, and I want to make sure I am spot on, effective. I want you to make sure you get my message. So I do very often share what I write or what I think before I send it. Social media, remember your personal brand is representing who you are. When you're asleep at night, somebody's watching your page. Somebody's looking to see what you said, who you may be, affiliated with. Sometimes you might have more than one Facebook account. Have one where you can do whatever. If you have some extreme things to say, you might want to have a different Facebook account versus what, other people can look at. I'm just saying, I'm just making you aware of all the ways you can communicate without even thinking that I'm sending certain messages. And remember those communication pitfalls. Remember to have attention to detail and to be prepared. Remember all of those things. Those are they may be obvious, but sometimes we get tripped up, and before you know it, we've done something like we didn't prove something well, we said something wrong. I actually was applying for a job, and I made a grave mistake. It was one of those one letter difference. So it was a word that I said, but it wasn't the right word. And being in my line of work, I should have, spell check doesn't catch those things. That's why it's important to reread or to pass it along to somebody else, because spell check doesn't always catch certain things. There's an app called Grammarly. If you get that app, Grammarly is also very helpful to kind of do that grammar check. Research shows that good communication is one of the top soft skills that managers look for in employees. And we can go further to say not only managers, but schools, recruiters of any kind. But communication will only ever be successful when both, again, the person sending the message and the person receiving it understands the key messages being put across. I cannot emphasize this enough. I just want to leave you with the thought of, whenever possible, wow them with words. People, they remember what you do, they remember what you say, they remember those first impressions. Wow them with words. It's just to your advantage. And if anyone has any general questions, at this time, I'm happy to take any questions.
And guys, after we go through a couple of questions, we're going to take a short little break before the last speaker comes on to kind of give you a chance to stand up and stretch your little legs out. And in the case of the people on the right, those two tall guys on the right stretch their long legs out. But, we'll go ahead and let you guys ask some questions. Because I see, who's that standing up in front of, is that Sin?
Yeah.
Go,
I
Sin,
have a question
go.
on what are the do nots in formal communication?
I'm sorry, can you repeat? I didn't hear you.
What are the do nots in formal communication? Like what should you not do at all?
So when we go back to those, I hear myself echoing. When we think about the word formal, it is not casual. It is for business. It is for a very serious situation. So the things that you do not do in formal communication is get very casual. And again, the formal communication could be written or it could be a verbal, it could be a speech. You're not getting casual. You're following protocols. And when I say protocols, this is something, communication textbooks, Google, you prepare for formal communication because it's all about business. It's all about the reputation and your, how can I say, your character, your credibility. This is all at the table when you're talking about formal communications. So, I did mention that no matter what form you're preparing for, if it's a message, if it's an email, certain concepts apply. When it comes to formal communication, this is where you want to up your game, bring your game, so that you come off as what they call a credible messenger. You are serious. You are one to be listened to. You dot your I's, you cross your T's. In formal communication, this is when you bring your best self to the table, and you realize it's not. Now, let me say this: if you're giving a speech and you are in a formal setting, a lot of times you can open with a quote, you can open with something humorous, but it is for the sake of being strategic. It's like an icebreaker. But you're not going to carry on in a formal presentation jokes throughout jokes and jargon and trendy language, saying things like that meal was fire. You're not going to do that because you're speaking colloquially. You're not. This is formal. It's a whole different game. It's wearing your formal clothes versus jeans. You're putting the best face on it. Does that kind of help you a little bit? You're going to your standards. When you're speaking formally, you are using best practices in your effort.
And one of the things too, when you bring up formal, when we start talking in a corporate environment, sometimes you're told to do a presentation, a PowerPoint presentation. And in a formal setting, that might mean using the formal template that the corporation uses. So you can't use the one that you impressed your friends with the little rockets that fly across and all the little sound effects in the back. That's no longer the right audience for that particular presentation. So what you want to do is, if someone says, Carl, you're going to be doing a formal presentation to XYZ, this audience, you need to find out the protocols. You don't wait till after the meeting and say, nobody told me. You have to take where was mentioned preparation. You have to do the preparation up front to find out, how should this be presented? What are the protocols and what are the expectations? So those are things we have to do when we talk. And the last thing I wanted to bring up for you guys too is preparation. A lot of times if we tell you guys, and we do this during the meetings, we'll say, hey, Pranav, for the next meeting, we need you to speak on X. And if you wait till the day of the meeting to start putting your presentation together, you might be presenting something, but you may not realize it, but everyone in the room knows you just did that. And then there's a question of your commitment and how focused you really are on what you were told to do. If he's not taking it serious, why should we take it serious? Obviously, he just put that together in 15 minutes. So people do realize the level of effort that you put into things. So you have to be very cautious with that, with your preparation. Does that make sense to you guys? Okay, I see a couple of hats nod. So, okay, that's the nonverbal communication. Okay. Did anybody else have any questions for Ms. Marionneaux?
So I have a quick comment. As we have this year, we have 4 seniors, rising seniors, as they prepare to write their college applications. What would be some pointers that you can give to them to write great essays? And to Mr. Jones' point, not essays that they write the last minute before the college application is due.
So that's a very good question. Usually a school will provide, okay, the topic, right? Write on this, do a 500 essay on this particular topic, that particular topic. And oftentimes it's an attempt to really understand how well you can take that topic and use formulas to communicate effectively your thoughts on that topic. When you think about, you use the formula, you use things like the inverted pyramid, and you say, okay, let's just say the subject is civil rights and impacts today or something like that. You're taking your topic, and first of all, you want to study the topic. Civil rights, what does that really mean? When was civil rights really at its highest impact in our country? What things have come out of civil rights? You want to, as Johnny said, you want to research the overall topic. Then what does that mean to you? What have you seen with your eyes? What are your impacts? So that essay that you're doing for that college, they give you the basic topic, but you want to take that broad topic, break it down first and foremost before you put pen to paper or before you type on whatever. You want to understand what it means, what it's saying before you have your point of view on it. You have to understand that before you express an opinion, right? A lot of people are opinionated, but they haven't done the research to really give a valid opinion or a credible opinion because they don't have the knowledge. So when you set out to do those essays, have the knowledge of the subject matter from more than one source. And I'm not talking about like something just like Wikipedia. Can't always go by that because that's just people giving their own input. When you well research something, then you have enough to begin to form your own opinions and possibly find your own point of view to strongly express about something on a particular topic. Write those essays out, bounce them off people, your professors, counselors, whomever. And that, I believe, is how you put your best foot forward in terms of writing those college essays. Keeping in mind everything we talked about, being concise, don't dwell too much on one particular point. You'll know when it flows. And, you know, I would write all of my thoughts out. This is what I have done in my life with my college papers. I would just write everything out and just get it out of my head, first of all, and put that to the side. Now that you've written everything you have to say about it, it's not in any order. You may use some of it, you may not use that much of it, but basically what's in your heart about a particular topic, you've communicated. Now you want to put that within a formula so that it is logical, you have validity, you've expressed yourself, they see who you are as a person. So it's a combination of both.
Okay. Well, thank you, Ms. Marionneaux, for taking the time to, bring these nuggets of knowledge. And what we'll do now, everyone, is we'll take a short break. We'll take like a 10-minute break, and then we'll have our last speaker coming in from Wendy's. And let's all give a big round of applause to Ms. Marionneaux, and thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Good luck. Thank you so much, Johnny. Take care.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, guys, we're going to be taking this little 10-minute break, and then we're going to have the last speaker who's coming in from Wendy's. The thing that's interesting about our last speaker is that he actually he used to work at Walmart in security, computer security. His name is Mr. Holland, Adam Holland. But Mr. Holland started as a Arkansas state trooper, driving, just driving a police car around. He went from being a state trooper to they decided to start a forensics team, and they asked for volunteers. So they who wants to be on the forensics team? Goes back to what we were talking about earlier, opportunity. So he decided, hey, I'll volunteer. So they sent him to training for forensics. Well, they were missing computer people. They needed somebody who understood computers to be part of the computer side of the forensics. So they said, who wants to do the computer part of forensics? We'll send you to training. And he said, okay, I'll be that guy. So he volunteered again because he said he used to like to play with his laptop. So he figured he could use that skill set. So he got the training. He became a forensics computer person, a computer forensics person. Later, Walmart started a forensics lab at their corporate headquarters, and they hired him into a corporate position. So now you have an individual that went from driving a state trooper car to being a computer security person to now all of a sudden he's gone from being that computer security person to guess what? Now he's the head of security for computers for all of Wendy's worldwide. So taking those opportunities and not knowing where they're going to lead you to, that's going to be our next speaker. You get a good chance to see how he did that. And along that path, he decided, well, if I'm going to do this, I need to go to college. And he went and got his degree, and he got his master's degree. So it wasn't all part of the initial plan, but across the journey, that's what he ended up doing. So he should be in about 10 minutes. And when he pops in 10 minutes, then we'll be able to have our last speaker. But you guys go ahead, stretch your legs and take a little break. And I apologize that we didn't get the breaks that we wanted to have in between, but we had to match out our speakers' schedules. And since our speakers are they came from Nevada, they came from Washington, and you had one from Chicago, and then this one will be coming from Arkansas. They're matching up those time schedules and then matching up the schedules of individuals. Ms. Potts actually is the head of technology. She's the head of all engineering and operations for a credit union, a national credit union. So her responsibilities are 7 days. Her responsibilities aren't Monday through Friday. So her responsibilities are 7 days a week. So she has to carve out time in that 7 days. At the same time, she's a mother. She's a family person and a mother, so she has to make time for that too. So as you guys start to look at responsibilities and jobs, keep in mind, you have to accept the responsibilities and the requirements of that job, not just it has to fit within my window of when I'm available. So if you want your career to fit into a Monday through Friday, you have to realize that you've limited down a lot of options, because those responsibilities sometimes they'll linger beyond, the higher up that ladder that you go, they start to linger out a little bit more. So anybody have any questions right now while we're on our little break?
Not right now, Mr. Jones. I dismissed them so that they can go get some bathroom breaks. They all needed to go to the bathroom real fast.
They will be back, Mr. Jones, okay? So only, I know 2 boys were just running around, so hold on, okay? Give us like 4 more minutes.
Oh, we got another 5 minutes. It's not a problem.
Okay.
And we don't want any accidents in the room, so.
No accidents. They were very polite. Let me tell you, they really didn't want to move from the room. They wanted to stay, but I noticed they were kind of moving, like feeling uncomfortable. That's why I sent them to the restroom.
Okay, well, they've got 5 more minutes, and we have Mr. Holland has popped in, so.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. Just be patient. I will get them in the room soon, okay?
Okay, how are you, Adam? He popped away. He was there for a minute.
Yeah, he'll come back. I think the internet is doing a number for a lot of people. He's back.
And Caitlin, how's the presentation been for you so far?
It's been great. I've loved being able to join online. I know I haven't been a member of this organization before, but seeing all these speakers and just hearing all the information has been really exciting for me.
Great, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Adam, how are you? Oh, you're still there on mute. Okay. And we have, is it Tishon? Is that, did I say your name correctly?
Yeah, you said it correctly.
Well, welcome. And how have you enjoyed the presentation so far?
I joined pretty recently, like probably 45 minutes ago. It's been nice. I've been like lacking in communication and stuff, and like hearing this is very helpful.
Great, great. Well, thank you for joining us. Appreciate you joining in. And who invited you?
My friend Carl invited me here. He told me to join.
Oh, great. Yep. Carl is a brilliant young man.
Mm-hmm.
And we hear he only has brilliant friends, so that makes you extremely brilliant too.
Thank you.
Okay. Adam, how's that audio going, Adam?
I think we're in better shape now. If you'll tell me you can hear me, okay?
I can hear you. I was going to act like I couldn't hear you and go,
yeah,
turn your mic on, but. And thanks, Adam, for doing this. We really appreciate it. We've got people at the University of Arkansas. They're in the library at the University of Arkansas. Then we have some people on the call. So it's kind of a combination of people, but we're always excited to hear from, Mr. Holland, and, you taking the time to do this is great. In your honor, I went and got a Frosty. So you guys got the strawberry Frosties now, so.
yeah, I'm keeper of the Frosty is what I've been jokingly saying, yeah.
Okay. Well, let's give them 2 more minutes to get into the room, and then we can start. I see Pranav's ready to start already, so forget the 2 minutes. Go ahead, Pranav.
Yep, we're gonna go right into it. Okay, welcome back, everybody. I hope you had a fantastic break. And I heard, did we introduce the new people in the Zoom chat as well during that break time?
Yes.
Oh, awesome. Okay. So next we're going to be going right into our last, but certainly not least speaker, who is Adam Holland, and he's the Vice President and Chief Information Security Officer at Wendy's. So Mr. Johnny's told us a lot of good things about you, so we're really excited to hear your presentation. And you're speaking about finding where we fit in. So I'll hand it right over to you.
All right, I appreciate it. Looked like you had a really interesting morning and list of previous speakers, and hopefully you didn't have a ton of carbs at lunch, and now my deep voice is going to put everybody to sleep. So we'll see how it goes. I do appreciate of knowing Johnny for a number of years now. We've worked together in part of my non-traditional career journey, and appreciate being able to be here, what you're doing, and love seeing the hard work that everyone's putting in to learning, to growing, and to finding your career track, starting in academia and then working out into your jobs from there. So today, as we go through this, I'll give a quick run through on my background, but I'd really like to make it interactive. And I know this group is always good about that, so that we can get into questions and things that are relevant on your mind, what you're seeing in the industry and career moves and changes, people around you. And then I can even spend some time on a lot of the work around the country, but even specific examples from what we're doing in Arkansas right now to do career transition for a lot of people who were in maybe manufacturing roles and have now moved into technology and others. So happy to expand on any of those topics and help start to translate some of the material into what does that mean in the job sector. So probably part of why Johnny chose me to be here today is my career path in life has taken many different directions. I'm one to definitely seek out the uncomfortable and things I haven't done. So it's been beneficial when change comes around that I tend to score pretty high on the personality test for dealing well with change and the stress that can come from it. I started my career and from a child sought to be in law enforcement. I come from a family of soldiers and police officers. My dad was at the time I became one, he was also a police officer. He's now retired out of the city of El Paso, Texas Police Department. And I spent 15 years in the city of Fort Smith, Arkansas on their police department. And it was actually that job that led me into technology. So it always had a little bit of a geek side to me as a kid growing up. Electronics, I was a kid that went and fixed and put together all the family's TV sets and audio systems, and on the side in the summer putting stereos in cars, and just fascinated with how all of it worked and how to make it do some cool stuff. In law enforcement, when computers, and it ages me unfortunately, but it's relevant to how my transition started. For a long time, computers were not, they were too expensive for most households to have access to. And so it minimized, one, the tooling and that people could use them for, but it also minimized what bad guys could do to weaponize that technology. So when they started to hit the market, become affordable, we immediately saw problems with kids and young kids under 12 and even teenagers that were already running into problems because people were using that as a connective way to find them and potentially exploit them through materials or other actions. And looking around the state at the time, the only people or only agency who had a computer forensics cyber investigation capability was the FBI. And it had to be a really big case and something really big going on to be able to get their time and assistance. So I went to the chief and asked to start a computer forensics unit. And in law enforcement, it's gotten a lot better thanks to the younger generation and folks that are coming into that field. But at that time, it was very difficult to find anyone in law enforcement that had an interest in computers or any kind of background in them. So went through the whole entire department, found a couple of the younger officers who had some time on computers in college and other things, and brought them into the lab, and we started our work. Built up from there, got picked up by the federal agencies, Secret Service, Marshals, FBI, others. They deputize us, meaning we're deputized by the U.S. Marshal Service. And in doing that, we can go on their search warrants and help them. And then we also went to tons of schools. So we got to go all over the US to somewhere a week long, somewhere 6 week long computer forensics, breach investigation cases, schools, and started and built out to where we were working cases across the tri-state area here and for multiple agencies. Along the way, Walmart asked me, I'd met some folks there. They'd asked me to come up as a translator, if you would. So as a police officer, you spend a lot of time in the courtroom, in the witness box, giving testimony about what you've done. That's hard in general, whether you're trying to describe what you saw or what happened at a scene or a crime scene. But when you have to translate how you recovered deleted files that were contraband or illegal on somebody's computer to a jury box and a judge that do not have computer training and may not even understand how to turn them on or off, it gets tough. You can actually lose a case simply because there's a breakdown in communication. So funny how that works in everything we do in life. If you don't communicate well, but a lot of things don't go well. So I was coming up and teaching classes on how to translate that to their technologists. So when they went in front of the board of directors, business leaders, or if they were called to give a deposition in a legal case, that they could appropriately describe in the right terminology with the work they had done. And after about a year or so of that, that led to a recruiting conversation where they asked me to come and join Walmart. I had figured I would be a retired police officer, just following tradition. But at the time, my son was probably around 2, and I was watching him grow up in grainy cell phone videos, and because they were really low quality back then, and decided that I would take a step back from police work. You have to work side jobs to pay the bills. So I had 3 jobs, and I decided I would try one and maybe a little bit more time with my family. Haven't regretted it, haven't looked back since. I spent about 10 years at Walmart. Started in there, I was their first cyber investigator, and then moved over into information security and worked my way up there, where I was a senior director leading information security when I departed about 3.5 years ago. I left Walmart to go, great career, great bosses, great people, but I had actually kind of specialized myself into a corner in a way. It was hard for me to continue to promote and do other things because I was such a specialist. So I sought out a colleague who had left Walmart and started a new office in Bentonville for GlaxoSmithKline GSK Pharmaceuticals. So think about, especially then, they've separated companies now, but Sensodyne and Excedrin, things like that were over the counter, and then a lot of other prescription medicines. Got into pharmaceutical and went to left pure information security and went to do that still, but now run security infrastructure across the entire global company. I needed more experience in hardware and the systems, understood how to protect them, but I also needed to understand how they were being deployed and stood up and then patched and managed. So I did that, and about 3.5 years in, I'd worked for both them and they separated into a new company now called Haleon. So all the stuff that you buy at Walmart off the counter is what Haleon is, and then GSK is all pharmaceutical, biopharmaceutical now. So prescription, a lot of HIV, cancer, and other drugs and vaccines. So went to do that, and then through, I'm sure you've had conversations along your journey now about mentors and sponsors, and be it in your business or in the community or in school. But with some of my mentors who also function in a way as sponsors that learned about this opportunity at Wendy's, that their CISO role had become available. And they reached out to me and said, hey, I know you're not actively out looking right now, but I think this would be a good fit for you. The culture, the size of the company, and they knew it was my career aspiration to eventually become a chief information security officer. So that mentor got me introduced to my now current boss and got my name in the hat. Started out with about 250 applicants and managed to demonstrate and lead my way through that interview and hiring process. And here I sit today, about to start week 8 at Wendy's. So definitely new here, but that's the 10,000 feet, 300-mile-an-hour pass of starting out. No, I forgot to mention the other two, no college degree when I started in law enforcement, even when I came to Walmart. So non-traditional curve into technology. I got to Walmart, I had a hard time understanding a lot of the business meetings, the lingo, the acronyms. And so I went back to school. I'm a poster child for finishing your degree much later in life when you have a career and family. I'm the poster child for why you don't want to do that, because it's tough. It was great for a career, but it was really hard to finish school that much later. But went back and got my degree in business and what I call a foreign language, so that now I could sit at the table as a security practitioner and understand the business needs and lingo, and then push forward. So really been all different directions, late life, college degrees, changes into technology, into private sector, complete industry flips, and then now landing on this lead role for all of the security and regulatory program. So I think probably a decent amount of experience to help with conversation and questions around, why and how does that change, and where do people transition? How are we upskilling our employees so that they learn new things and they don't just have to be replaced, right? And how you show and reward their efforts to learn and grow in a fast-changing technology world. So I think with that, be great if we want to transition to some questions or conversations or other topics.
How long were you at Walmart for before you went to the other company and then to Wendy's?
So Walmart was around 10 years that I was there. I was a senior director when I left Walmart, and then I was at GSK about 3 years before now coming to Wendy's.
And was there a change in environment whenever you switched between the companies, or does it kind of feel the same as Walmart to you at your current job?
That's a good question. And Johnny and I can probably both kind of grin as we think about the changes in cultures and environments. So Walmart, huge, right? Fortune 1 global, fast, crazy pace. Its size and nature make it sometimes rather utilitarian, while a lot of us that work there try to kind of hold the culture together. The switch to pharmaceutical was huge. So GSK is a British company. So I went from working for homegrown American, central US business to where now I was the foreign employee. I was the offshore worker, and quite a big culture shock. And coming in there and getting Walmart had helped me start my journey of understanding culture and international and diversity and other things, and not just my US centric experience. but GSK really took it to the next level where I had to adjust to working for, I jokingly called myself a colonial misfit just to give my British counterparts a hard time. But the stereotypes and even realistic at times opinions or ideas that people held of US employees, and typically compared to a lot of other cultures where there's a lot more conversation, a lot more time spent on building the plan and the team and the other pieces, whereas Americans quite often we're very like, okay, but we got to get done. How fast can we do it? And we're hard chargers. And so coming into that, there was resistance even in showing up in meetings because you're the American and they expect you to talk too much, be too loud, or just be too fast and pushing too hard to get stuff done and not spending more time on the relationship. So some of that true, very true for, it's been my pace and going, but also where I had to step back and come into meetings and approach it much different. And it showed the importance of really learning your audience, learning these topics now that luckily are becoming much more part of daily conversation and not some foreign concept to be taught, but around the diversity and inclusion piece of me taking an intentional pause, self-reflection and looking at what's true, what is this, what personality traits do I have that may be causing me problems, what's different in my peers in these international markets. Half my team was in the US, the other half was mostly Poland and some in UK. And so stepping back and finding that right mix and how I needed to show up authentic, but adjusted based on my audience. And so that was a big change there. Now coming back to Wendy's, I'm right at home here. Compared to those places, especially, it's a very small company, Midwestern. They're based out of Dublin, Ohio, right outside of Columbus, and just a very big welcome mat in this business. So very tight culture, very people-centric, family first kind of things. And to give you an idea, I interviewed with 11 people to get this job. And 9 of them were execs, everybody but the CEO. So the chief financial officer, chief people officer, all of those had to interview with them to get in. And it's to make sure you are absolutely a fit coming in, that you have that right mindset and kind of servant leadership style. So very, very good question to show you is extremely different in the different places. And even going back when I left law enforcement to come into the private sector, that was a huge change as well. Paramilitary environment, yes, sir, yes, ma'am. If the sergeant or the captain said to go do it, everybody did it. And then you come into private sector and there's a lot more conversation. I was desensitized, being in law enforcement. So in some of the early calls or war rooms or when things were broken, I was asked if I cared, right? Because I wasn't showing an emotional reaction. For me, nothing was on fire. Nobody, there's no shots fired. There's nothing going on. So I was extremely relaxed. But that was my first adjustments, was to start asking questions and showing a little bit of empathy, demonstrating it, even if I had it inside to adjust. So every transition has been a huge change, some for the good, some I guess maybe to make it more of a learning exercise. What else? Good question.
So what type of work do you do as a chief information security officer?
So this one is a lot of different hats. And so I'm responsible for oversight of all the information security, the regulatory and compliance work, a lot of our technology, so our identity and access, the way you log in, the way you get credentials, the way we handle those pieces. But in addition to that technology piece is you become an ambassador to the rest of the business. You become a student of the business so that you're always looking and listening to what the rest of the company is trying to accomplish and not getting siloed in specificity or hiding behind the secret squirrel work. That we're out there and building those relationships. An example being yesterday, I presented to the teams from the culinary arts team. So they're the folks that are making all the new recipes and the foods, and they're like, what does information security have to do with us? And when we start talking about recipes and things like that, right, that are not known, or all ingredients and other pieces, it's important, and it can be stolen and monetized. So you have to go out and educate the business. And then externally, there's interaction and relationship with regulators who are looking to see, hey, you know, what's your maturity level? How are you running your business? That could be the Security and Exchange Commission. It can be DOJ. We're going through the process of renewing our cyber insurance right now. So all of those underwriters from all over the world show up at one time in a big meeting room or a large conference call and start to pepper you with questions about what are you doing to patch and to manage your vulnerabilities and to mature your program. So a lot of different soft skills, and at the same time, you have to keep sharp on the technical side. I'm not on the keyboard building things anymore. If I build something now, it's probably a PowerPoint presentation or an Excel spreadsheet. And I'm not, you know, in programs and making adjustments anymore. But having to maintain that technology awareness, what's changing, what's going on in the cloud, what does that relate to for threat landscape? And then having the vocabulary that comes from that to be in the meetings and to both aid your teams, but also challenge at times, right? To ask the right questions and lead that way. So, and that's very much a part of my style. There's the author's escaping me at the moment, but a book called Questions Are the Answer that our CISO at Walmart actually had our entire team read. And it's great because it was something else that I had to learn to do by left to my own nature. I'm a very introverted, quiet listener, great in law enforcement, very good at picking up details and listening and capturing all of that. But sometimes in the business world, your quietness while you're processing and listening, and if it's in any of your personalities, you'll understand, it can be seen as disconnected or not engaged, when in fact, inside your head, you're extremely engaged. So all of that question capability that I've now adapted and use as a CISO in all roles I've had, I can lead and even steer a room instead of telling them, I want you to, you know, make 2 lefts. I can ask the question about why would we want to make the right and why wouldn't we make the left, and actually have them through their answer and their study of it do exactly what I wanted done in the beginning, but I have more engagement and more buy-in, and I've demonstrated engagement in the content in general. So see, there's a lot there on how you have to be politician at times, an ambassador. You're presenting to the board of directors, you're representing your area. So all those skill sets that you can pick up, all those experiences are all really beneficial.
So what was the hardest thing about going back to school at a, like later in your life?
My Zoom cut out right at the very beginning. I caught that it was asking about going to school later, but could you repeat the question?
What was the hardest thing about going back to school later in life?
The hardest? Focus. I would summarize with the word focus for sure. So going to school now it doesn't mean that it's any easier for any of you. It's still hard curriculum. It's still keeping up with expectations of your instructors and your workload and perhaps a job on the side. But when I went back, I was working full-time for Walmart, and that means 50, 60 hours a week, plus a wife and 2 kids, and then trying to do your studying, really follow the curriculum and get what you need to get from it to maintain your GPA, and somewhere in there in between every now and then catch like 2 hours of sleep, right? So that was just the time and the ability to fit all those pieces together, and the family understanding that every night dad goes in the office at the house and disappears for 2 to 5 hours probably because he's heads down, you know, studying for an exam or writing a paper or doing something else. So it just made it tougher because the longer I waited, the more things I added as what needed to be done in the day, managed throughout the week, and what took my time. So that was what made that the most difficult. Would still do it. Glad I did. I'm not advocating for not getting the degree later in life. Just demonstrating why going to school early on helps. And then as you grow later in your career, you can do like Johnny and just continue to build and study and add to his degree and grow, and way smarter than I'll ever be.
Oh boy. I see someone trying to get, and when you get that little delay, Adam, they have a special person to unmute the mic for.
Did it matter what school you went to with network opportunities? Sorry, did the network opportunities, were they affected since you came in school later? Since you weren't like as young, did it affect your opportunities with networking and connections? And did it also matter what school you went to? Like if it was an Ivy League or a normal school, like would that affect, yeah. Would it, sorry, like did going to like, what type of school affect, did the school you went to affect your experiences going as an older person, like going back in school? Sorry.
I think perhaps, and great questions, and appreciate you coming forward. Perhaps to some degree it affected it, although at that time, and this was pre-COVID, I went to John Brown University, and they have a program where you do one night a week, some Saturday mornings, and the rest is online. So the school that I chose was based on, I knew I could do that, so that if it was midnight and I had to write my paper, it was fine. I wouldn't be missing a class every day because work called me in. So that helped. When I first came to Walmart, it was pretty funny a little later. The people around me, I was hired in because I had experience and certifications that civilians couldn't get. And so when I came in and joined the team on the investigation side early on, everyone around me had MBAs and other degrees and had been to small schools and even big, well-known schools, Ivy League schools as well. And there were a few people in there who would at times kind of make fun of folks or talk about somebody, you know, about kind of boasting about their degrees. And so it was really funny the day I announced that I had gone back to school to get my bachelor's degree, because you could see the panic in a lot of eyes as they tried to reflect on what they had said to me or around me, that somebody had snuck into their ranks without a college degree. There is in the workplace there's some impact from, you'd mentioned Ivy League schools and what you go to. There is some of that alumni influence that can get on paper for hiring managers if they recognize the school name, and at times it could just be, it may not even be that they have familiarity with their curriculum, they just recognize the Yales and things like that. There are people who may lean in that direction. I will say that is often initial and temporary, where many, especially in the competitiveness of the job market now, have learned to look for what did the curriculum and what they did in the school, what does that translate into your capability and your aptitude? And not so much which school did you go to, but what curriculum did you participate in? And so I've seen that change and shift over the last few years because it's gotten so difficult to find talent. There used to be an abundant, supply, and you could get and you could seek out, well, I'm only going to take people maybe that went to this type of school, people who only had this type of GPA. And then now you're really testing them, because a lot of the people we hire into technology and security now, we're bringing you in with the hopes of setting you up for success. And at the same time, we benefit from that. So we're looking at aptitude and capability as much as we are where you went to school and what your GPA was. School demonstrates exposure, it demonstrates work ethic. Your GPA tells a lot about, how you did in the topics, and then we go from there. But I do still see some people, if you are from the same colleges and other things, and you're at a minimum, you're going to have a new friend immediately if it doesn't just help you in other ways. A lot of people, with Wendy's being in Ohio, a lot of the people I work with all day, all they talk about is Ohio State football, right? So sports. So there's an example of their kids went to Ohio State, they've all gone to Ohio State, and then I roll in being born and raised in Texas and living in Arkansas, and so they're really trying to figure out where my loyalties lie as to what parties I might get invited to, I guess, during football season. So excellent question.
And Alan, when you expand on that, it's when we look at our careers over the years, like at the Walmarts, and for you, the Walmarts, the GSKs, and the Wendy's, and we look at all the different places we've been, especially in technology. It becomes more of the application of the skill than the academic itself. So you'll get people that came from the greatest schools, but they can't apply that. They can answer the questions, but they can't apply it and show innovation. So you get these guys that might come from anywhere that have that innovative mindset that they can take something to a whole different level. And that's where you're trying to go. And at the same time, they have the character and integrity that you feel builds your team up with, versus, like you said, the guys who are making fun of the other guys because they don't have, they didn't go to this school, that school, but they become the ones that you look and say they're not really building the team. So I need to get these other guys. But everybody fits the pie, but at the end of the day, you're looking to see who can deliver.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely, Johnny. And in my interviews, when I'm participating in them, it's not uncommon. In fact, it's pretty much everyone that I'll ask an almost impossible question that, it may be some random error code or something that one of these days somebody's going to have the answer, and it's going to be a pretty funny moment. But what it does is test there was a gentleman that worked for me at Walmart that coined the phrase, at least for me, called the tinker mentality. And it's very common, especially in security, even more, it's getting more so in technology in general. You need to understand not just how to push the button and get the result you want as a consumer, but in technology and security, how did that process, what made that result, what caused that to happen, so that you can fix it or improve it. And we'll ask questions that don't have an answer, and it's to see, it doesn't mean that if somebody just kind of locks up because they don't understand what to do next, it doesn't mean they're not a good hire. It just identifies where they may fit differently on a team. Place that has more playbooks and more process, like regulatory and audit and things like that, or the person that will pause and say, you know what, I'm not sure, but here's what I would do to start to find that answer. And yes, Google is absolutely acceptable, right? You're Googling, I'm going to Microsoft, I'm going to TechNet, I'm talking to peers in the industry, and I'm going to see who else has encountered this, because it's a common use tool. Somebody else has had this problem, and how did we get through it? And then that's the person that I often want in a lot of my security roles, because the scenarios are not predefined. They often don't have a playbook, and I need somebody that can think both forward and backwards through the technology and that tinker mentality. How does it work? If I take it apart, can I put it back together? So absolutely thinking through and demonstrating that school, college, any college helps open that part of your mind, right? As you explore and you go through the material. Do be mindful of, as you choose curriculum, and I'll be more than happy if you're looking at it from a security and technology standpoint to help translate it. But take a look at it and try to understand it, not just how it fits into your academic journey, but how it translates in the job market. So a lot of schools have put certain classes in, and they have a great title, and they look really good on paper, but the content is extremely minimal. And so when it comes time to demonstrate that, or if I see that on your transcripts or mentioned in maybe one of your clubs or something, and I ask you a couple questions and you don't have the fundamental pieces of that, that's a problem, right? So look at that. If you get the classes, you're trying to, hey, Adam, what does this mean? If I'm looking at this course, reach out to me, send me the course catalog thing, and we'll talk through it and discuss, this is what this would mean. And if I saw this out here in the industry, what it would be like. So use your network, your community, others to take a look at that curriculum that you choose, to make sure it's in depth enough to be beneficial to you on the other side of all that pain and suffering of studying and testing.
And I'm glad you brought that up, Adam, because we have the different disciplines in technology, be it engineering, and then within engineering, be it software engineering, data engineering, whatever those different disciplines are. And if your curriculum doesn't match the discipline, people think I have an engineering degree, so I can go get these jobs, but it doesn't address the needs. You don't have the training or the understanding of the concepts that are necessary. So now you end up in a situation where I got good grades, but they weren't grades in the right area. So you end up going to someone to find out, like yourself, in a security, and say, for security, what are you guys looking for? So even if it's not within the curriculum, but those classes are offered, I can add that to my curriculum. Instead of saying, I'm going to take the basket weaving for my elections, I can actually take the other classes. So I'm glad you brought that point up of finding out what's necessary in the industry, and not just thinking, I finished the curriculum with good grades, so I'm going to get me a great job. It has to match up to what the industry is looking for.
Absolutely.
Any more questions, people? There's a lot of little green shirts out there. Here comes a green shirt, Adam.
Oh,
A tall green shirt.
it's gonna be a tough question. He's got a serious look going.
So you mentioned that you went back to school and that was to get your bachelor's degree. Was there another point where you went back to school to get any further like education after that?
Good question. I've pondered. I haven't been back for the master's yet, where after the bachelor's degree, what I've focused on has been certifications and training that you pick up in the industry. So there's some of the security specific, data privacy specific, a lot of those courses, and in particular going through a company called SANS, S-A-N-S, that has a ton of very difficult courses and certifications. That's been the focus to pick those up and get, like right now I'm working on one for cloud because we're transitioning at Wendy's everything into GCP and Azure, and I need to keep getting stronger there. So that's been my path, has been industry certifications as opposed to slowing down enough yet to go back and do my master's degree. Either has a path. The why I chose the certifications right now is academia has a very slow process for changing their curriculum. And so it's hard. Sometimes it can take years for them to transition. I know I work with some of the gentlemen and the ladies up at the University of Arkansas, and it's just the process. It's a decades old process. And so the certification route allows me to pursue some of that new material faster. So that's just kind of part of it there, that and time. Go ahead, sir.
So I know you went back to school, and I hear a lot of people say that with certain jobs, that with like as time progresses, that you slowly just start to understand things that you learn and the company will teach you. In hindsight, do you think that you would have been like just as well off if you didn't go back to school? Do you think you would have been some of these things you would have just naturally picked up just by being immersed in that culture?
I like that question. Yeah. So yes, I would say that there is a chance that I would have picked up some of it. I don't know about all of it through the course of time. What I would worry about is the comparison of the amount of time that I had to learn it versus exposure or being recognized for opportunities to speed up that learning. So I think if I hadn't gone back and worked on that degree work and got some of those things on paper, because especially in a business the size of Walmart, a lot of what happens or doesn't happen in your career starts with a couple page resume and hiring managers and other people before you even get a chance to try and sell your skill sets. So by putting some of that into place, my paperwork and my chance there and the filtering process was greater. And then I was much more prepared earlier on to be able to demonstrate those skill sets, use the correct vocabulary and understanding of the business. And so could I have still succeeded? Probably out of honoriness and hard work, yes. But I definitely see where it sped up some of that success for sure. And it changed my mindset of that finishing it, even a little bit of or a lot, not a little, the springboard of being one of the first in my family to have a college degree. So those pieces changed the way I showed up at work as well, and what I understood about the investment in myself and what I had actually accomplished. And that made the next obstacles easier to overcome. So psychological aspect to it as well. I will mention for you as you're looking at the
I think he froze for a minute. Hopefully he'll come back.
Yeah, it looks like his internet took a little hit there.
We'll go. Turned off.
There you go. You're back.
Yeah, Zoom just went away and came right back. That was strange. They had been talking too much. I burned out the app. But the reality of the current job market is you come to me with what you like to do and what's wired into your personality, and I will help you see what that means for a technology path. If you're like teaching and sharing and working with the groups and have that teacher mindset, We have an entire industry now around user training and awareness, employee training and awareness. It's a part of all the regulatory work. How do you help build the curriculum and then take that to the workforce to make them less likely to be your weakest point from a cybersecurity standpoint, to make them stronger as a consumer and safer as a consumer? If you like math and a lot of those pieces, it may be engineering, it may be coding. If you're very analytical, it may be one of the analysts who looks at all the alerts and the attack data that's coming in and the dashboards and helps try to detect those malicious actors. There's not really anything these days that you can't translate into anything into a technology field. And the same is for security now. So please just stay open-minded. I'll always encourage the technology path. There's plenty of other cool stuff to do, but the security in the security field, we're, I believe, over a million openings worldwide right now, right, for jobs. So just to give you an idea what's out there. And also for you and those in your family, and as we look to transition, so much work going on right now for career transition where people have taken other paths, chose to do other work, and then now we're using fellowship programs, internship programs, boot camps, you name it, to help people transition into technology. It totally resets the economic outlook for regions. That's why Arkansas is all in right now. You know, predominantly a heavy manufacturing state. In the past, a lot of that manufacturing left and hurt the economy. Now the governor or state and governor sponsored programs are speeding up the transition of Arkansas's workforce into a technology one. And so now more jobs, right? You have more technology people, they make more money, they pay more taxes. There's a benefit for everybody, right? And government included. So just keep that open-minded, and absolutely, especially across the board, don't let it limit you by your interests, by what you think it is, if it has a gender or anything else to it. We want everybody coming into this field, especially young ladies. So we need a lot more of you at the table, providing adult supervision to guys like me, but and helping us progress and advance the field and what we're doing and what we're seeing. We just finished with our intern class in security at Wendy's, all ladies, and awesome. They just did their final presentations to us and several senior executives, and I'm just blown away by the talent and those young ladies, how well they showed up, and then how fast they picked up the technology. And so here to help in any way that I can, you know, the mentor connection in the community, phone a friend, whatever it needs to be, just an email, text, or call away.
Anyone up? I see somebody standing, almost. There he goes.
So you said earlier that you worked in law enforcement at the beginning of your career and you were fairly introverted and you were pretty quiet, but as you kind of transitioned into your other jobs, you were able to control the room and steer people to different ideas. And I was wondering, how did you get to that point, and how did you develop yourself to communicate effectively and be able to control a room like that?
Yeah, so it's a phrase I heard quite a while back that I like for my personality type, situational extrovert. So introvert by nature, but learned where there's times in events or other things to come forward. Some of that development happened in law enforcement where you either learned how to start communicating and working with people, or you fought all the time and things just don't go well. You don't have the engagement and the presence that you need. So I started to learn it there, that if I would pause and engage, the difference there. Getting into the private sector, I watched the rooms, as I'm a study of people, and there were kind of two things. There were the people like me that stayed pretty quiet, very analytical, listening, thinking, would need a little bit, and then would come back and discuss the topic with you. And then there were others that did all the talking, and what I coined a phrase I call momentarily marvelous. You know, right? They sound great, they show up for the moment, they do all the talking, they limit the other people's participation, and can impact your success if they're left to run on their own. So I watched that, the bad of being too quiet, the disruption of often just talking to talk, and look to find that middle ground of how to show up, how to interact with your audience, how to study your audience before you show up, or at least think through what they're doing and where they're at. And then I actually used a couple of executive coaches to help, where I talked about, I'm not one to I love efficiency. I don't want to speak just to talk. But unfortunately, in a lot of jobs, and at that time at Walmart, she told me, well, I love the fact that when you do speak, it's very relevant, but you work for a company that values voice. So the compromise I found and what has been my biggest tool has been the art of questions. And so we talked about earlier, right? It comes back to that, to engage, to show that I'm engaged. And if you think about it, if you're more introverted side, to ask the question is minimal conversation, right? You ask the question and you get the person or the group to do all the talking and to help fill in the spaces and cover the material. And as an introvert, that's fine by me, right? I'll let them talk. It's not just all the Adam Holland hour. And so that ability to question, it was great as a detective. It works great in influencing and steering and leading teams. And then it helps me problem solve faster than a lot of other people, because I will pause and start to go down that path instead of thinking that I'm a vice president, I have all this experience, therefore I must have the answer. And I'm about to try and convince the room that I know all the answers, and it's not the case. So humbleness mixed with liking questions, that's how I found my position and why I can talk to one person or 500 and be just fine. But after a few hours, you may find me disappearing for a little bit to go recharge is all. Good questions, good questions.
Anybody else have any questions? Right, Adam, before we close out our 2022 workshop, any other questions? Okay. And Adam, I really appreciate once again you coming out to talk to us and impart some of the nuggets of knowledge on us as usual. But I've always admired your journey because, like you said, it wasn't something that you from the beginning said, this is what I'm going to do it, and this is where I'm going to be in 15 years. This is where I'm going to be. When people say in 15 years where you're going to be, you created a new journey, and your new journey created where you're on, the opportunities that you have today, and like like you mentioned before, you still don't know where this journey is going to take you to. Right. Yeah, but it's just being prepared and knowing that keeping those doors open for opportunity. So it's a great story that everyone needs to hear, because a lot of the students, and if you look at our lineup of how we had our speakers speak. It's kind of an interesting, Pranav, if you guys take a look and you see where our very first speaker was my dream, my journey. And for her, she's a federal defender right now. And she wanted to be a lawyer from the time she was in high school, because of an experience that happened to her, it made her want to be a lawyer. So it became her dream and her journey to get there. Then we had our next speaker, Ms. Potts, who's actually, she was at Walmart when you were there for a while. She's now Senior Vice President over at BECU, but she spoke on My Best Me, what does the journey entail? So now you go from a dream to a journey to saying, what's best for me? And that might change over time. It's what's best for me. And then the thing that kind of ties everything together is the communications. We had someone talk on communications. Am I communicating with clarity? And you kept mentioning it over and over and over, the importance of the ability to communicate, and each speaker did. So it tied all those things together. And then with you, speaking on the where do I fit in? And I called it Where Do I Fit In? Because it's at some points in your career, you have no idea, because you're looking and you're taking a look at those opportunities. If you didn't take advantage of those opportunities, there's no telling, you wouldn't be at Wendy's right now, No. But it's just a matter of when you tie all the speakers together and you see what the messages were from everybody, it gives you an opportunity to find out, while I'm in high school, I want to set a plan for myself, but it doesn't dictate where I'm going to be in 10, 15 years. So I have to be open to opportunities and be prepared to take advantage of them. So does anybody have any final questions for Mr. Holland before we wrap this up?
And Johnny, if I could right quick, I know we talked today, just real quick with the students and the team. We talked about how I've succeeded and how I've gotten to where I'm at now. And it's a very diverse and crooked path and ran them all over the place to get there, and probably still don't know what I want to be when I grow up. But there were a lot of struggles and a lot of failures along the way. And I don't want you to lose sight of the fact that adversity is a part of everybody's awesome story. In fact, I think it amplifies the awesomeness of success. Another time, another topic we can expand on, but I come from a background, especially in my childhood, of one that statistically speaking, I shouldn't be here and I shouldn't be successful. There are plenty of excuses out there for why I wouldn't succeed, and what it means coming out of low income neighborhoods and challenges and struggles along the way and obstacles. I look at life in two ways: that I can take the excuses for why I failed to succeed, or I can seize them as the reasons why I succeed. And so that has been my entire journey, is to prove my past and my naysayers wrong. So through school, through jobs, through places where, still hearing voices from folks that said you won't make it or you won't do it, that has been a driver and continues to be. And so it's also along the way where I got people who invested in me, people who helped give me guidance, who helped me focus, and why I come back to return that favor now. But as you set out on this journey, academia, school, professional, private sector, let your background, all its good and even its bad, be like jet fuel, right? Don't let it be an anchor or a weight. Let it be jet fuel that pushes you forward, because I assure you the success is there to be had, especially if people are doubting that you'll get it. It's easier to pass them because they're not paying attention, right? So keep pushing, keep doing really good. And I appreciate you're here today. You're given a Saturday to invest in yourselves and your journeys going forward. Super awesome. And I'm glad that you gave me a chance to come and spend a little bit of it with you as well.
Okay. Well, Pranav, you want to close out the meeting and give everybody a chance to go find something to eat, because you guys look hungry. Every one of you just really looks hungry. And some of you look like a Snickers commercial just about to happen. So
Okay, yeah, we're all pretty hungry, but thank you everyone so much for speaking. I think only one of our speakers is actually here right now. But thank you so much, Mr. Holland, for speaking. Your story was so inspiring, and I loved hearing about how you went to college later in life, you learned all these skills, and you were able to climb up in your job and in your life throughout. That was really amazing. So I'll just close up by saying thank you everybody for coming here. Like Mr. Holland said, it's a Saturday, so happy to see that everybody got to give us our Saturdays today. And yeah, I don't really know what else to say. Everyone enjoy your Saturdays, and I hope you learned something amazing today.
Thanks a lot. Everybody have a great day, and thanks again, Al.
Yes, sir.
Bye. Have a great afternoon.